Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. With the latest WWE edition of your favorite professional wrestling podcast. That's right, Getting Over is back once again, still off a high from WWE Elimination Chamber with a brand new WWE episode for your ear holes. We will not only take a second look back at Elimination Chamber, the John Cena heel turn, the returns of Randy Orton and Jade Cargill. We will also be breaking down everything we have not already discussed from SmackDown, and of course, cover the entirety of Raw on Monday night. If for some reason you have not already heard Getting Over's instant analysis from WWE Elimination Chamber, it is waiting for you in our podcast feed. We have received rave reviews from our listeners, our Getting Overheads, about this show, and it is already in the top 10 most listened episodes in this program's history, despite it only being out just over 48 hours. Vintage Chris Vanini will be along for the ride momentarily. Before I get to him, I need to remind you that the Getting Over Wrestling podcast
is all about Defy.
So please, folks,
stop being marks for yourselves and go back to being a mark for me.
Go back to being marks for the Silver King Vintage. Head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. And yes, we have 2 more brand new 5-star reviews. The first from Nate Marshall. I acknowledge you. What's up, fellas? It's taken me a while to write a review because honestly, your show means so much to me and helped me through a tough time, so I didn't want to be too emo. I started back watching WWE in fall 2023 after being a fan as a kid during the Attitude Era and falling off as I got older. Long story, extremely short. My wife had her first child in November 2023, had a really tough postpartum experience, including multiple unexpected hospital stays. Through those early tough days of fatherhood and the long recovery watching wrestling, that became a solace where I could turn my brain off and also talk about it with my closest guy friends. I found your pod through Vintage's College Football Pod. Rare Vandy fan here. Definitely rare. And y'all have become the unwitting 5th and 6th man to my wrestling group chat. Things are much better now, thank heavens. My wife is anxiously awaiting Jade's return, while our baby girl yeets happily for the 30 minutes she watches before bedtime. Your wife just got that return. Thanks, fellas. If you're ever in Madison, Wisconsin for a Badger game, I owe you a beer. So a Vandy fan in Madison, Wisconsin, who has a child eating and a wife who loves Jade Cargill, and we are the 5th and 6th man in their wrestling group chat. Nate, I am so glad that we helped you through a tough time. This review means a lot to us. If we can ever have an impact on someone to that degree, it makes everything that we do worthwhile. And man, individually, we acknowledge you.
Acknowledge.
Big acknowledgement right there.
Acknowledge.
Also, MJ Pierce 14, enlightening and entertaining 5 stars. Silver King and Vintage provide insightful and passionate reactions in a measured and entertaining way, a massive enhancement to the occasionally challenging experience of following pro wrestling. They make it easier to enjoy with their reactions and reflections on the overwhelming number of hours of wrestling TV and news every week. MJ Pierce, greatly appreciate that review as well. We acknowledge you.
Acknowledge.
Big acknowledgement right there.
Acknowledge.
You know, Chris, I love when we get the 5-star reviews, we get the emails, we get the, messages on social media about how much the show means to people or how much they enjoy it. It's rare that we get one, as emotional as Nate's. So I just wanted to kind of double back and say it means a lot to us, and I'm glad that, the show means so much to you.
Yeah, and obviously glad you're doing better. Anytime we hear from any listeners about anything is always greatly appreciated. So we know we're not just speaking to each other here.
In a void, right?
and as he mentioned there too, like kind of got back into it a couple of years ago. I think that's sometimes we think, oh, everybody listening must have been listening from the beginning, or
right.
they've been here for the whole bloodline story. And it's not. A lot of people have been getting into wrestling over the last couple of years as it's gotten better. So glad you found it. Appreciate you following my college football stuff as well. And yeah, next time I'm up in Madison, would love to say hi. I've not been to Madison since 2009. I covered a Michigan State game there when I was in college, but awesome college town.
Yeah, I could definitely see that being the case. Wisconsin seems like a lot of fun. Camp Randall Stadium seems awesome. Definitely a bucket list type of spot if you're a college football fan. There's no question about that. You know, you said it about new wrestling fans and also new listeners. It's actually astounding to me the number of people we've heard from over years recently. And not just like while WWE's been on fire, but like since like 2022, really, that have said, hey, just started watching or hadn't watched for 20 years and just picked it up again. We found your show either through a friend, through Spotify Home, or just Googling, or whatever the case. Maybe they found us on social media and we listened, and you guys are like now a major part of our watching, viewing, and understanding habit. You know, we didn't necessarily create the show in that manner, but I do think, Chris, that speaks to the detailed nature of this podcast, where if you are someone who's kind of certainly looking for commentary and opinion, and we give you all that, but we also do a little bit of a deeper dive into everything that happens across Raw, SmackDown, on the Thursday show, NXT and AEW. And it's pretty cool to hear from people that appreciate that beyond loving the sound drops and loving, you know, some of our takes and when you and I get heated at each other and some of the bits that we have on the show. It's always cool to hear that. So I greatly appreciate both of those reviews. And a reminder, we just want to get to 500 reviews by WrestleMania. We're well on our way there. I think we have like 15 or 13 left. We know how many people listen to the show. Leave that review. We'll read it on the air. We'll acknowledge you. We just wanted to get a 500 by WrestleMania. Also, please subscribe to us on YouTube at Getting Overcast. Full audio episodes. We have portions of interviews getting posted, our video interviews getting posted. Getting Over will have our first brand new interview of 2025 coming this week on the Thursday show. That is the plan as of right now. Look for that in full on YouTube. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter, at Getting Over on Blue Sky for episode drops, news, analysis, highlights, all that good stuff. You can send us questions and comments for the show via tweet, DM, or chat. And if you do, we will do our best to answer either directly or live here on the show. You'll hear a lot of questions and comments on this episode. Now, we have an absolutely loaded program ahead. Your WWE Elimination Chamber second look, the main event, the good, the bad, and the ugly, a look at the WrestleMania 41 card. Probably not enough time for the last word.
But I'm afraid I've got some news.
And we do have a few items to knock off right at the top here. It does look like there's only going to be one Saudi Arabia event for WWE in 2025, probably King of the Ring, King and Queen of the Ring. Maybe they combine it with Crown Jewel because they have those championships that need to get awarded again. But the reason for that is because there's going to be 3 Blood Money in the Sand shows in 2026. Royal Rumble, King and Queen of the Ring, and Crown Jewel, presumably. You'll remember we were wondering to ourselves whether the Saudi Rumble was going to be a separately paid event. Turns out it's just part of the current contract, which makes you wonder why WWE would go ahead and do that rather than earn a site fee elsewhere. The only thing that can come to mind is really one of two options. One, it opened a date in 2025 that winds up becoming a significant show, either internationally or in the United States, or Saudi just asked or demanded something and WWE acquiesced. It very well might be both.
Yeah, I mean, you made the most important point there, which was, what are we going to do with these Crown Jewel championships? That's really important. We got to figure out who gets those amazing belts and rings that we've never seen since. And ultimately, I think this makes sense. I mean, they've been doing 2 every year. If you're going to get 3 one year, you do 1 the other year.
It's 1/4 of PLEs in a year are going to be in Saudi.
And that's if we even have 12, which is not always the case.
Right.
So
it might even be more than that.
Yep. Not looking forward to that Royal Rumble. Not looking forward to that.
Yeah, especially the Women's Royal Rumble, which they don't react well to the women, and that's unfortunate. Ari Emanuel said WWE will bring multiple events to Perth, Australia over the next few years. This is obviously a site fee agreement like they got with Indianapolis. It starts with an announced weekend takeover in 2025, SmackDown, a premium live event, and Raw, all of which will be held at the 15,000-seat RAC Arena. So there's not going to be a stadium show. Probably smart because WWE sold 50,000 tickets to this far off spot just last year. It would be extremely difficult to do that again. But on that note, as we've explained before, Perth is the most isolated major city in the world. WWE continues to give up the entire east coast of Australia, with multiple major cities, much more populous cities as well. And they're running multiple shows now in the same somewhat isolated location. It's probably a great business move because of the site fee, I guess. But for your Australian fans, I cannot imagine it's well received at all, given the vast majority of them are on the East Coast. And what I understand is, A, you don't drive across the Outback to get there. And B, they raise the ticket prices, not for just the attendance in the arena, but for plane tickets to get over there when there are major events. So like these fans, if they want to go and see, imagine if you want to go to all three shows, it might cost like $5,000-$6,000 to do that, and hotel included. And that is crazy if you're a normal person who just happens to be a wrestling fan in Australia. So they're doing what they're doing. I don't necessarily understand. And even going back to Perth this year, that's one thing. But if it's a multiple year agreement and they go back every year, you're going to wear out that isolated market. So I just don't fully understand this move.
Yeah, I am curious. We do have Australian listeners, and I heard from you after I complained about the last show starting in Perth and start time.
Mm-hmm.
That's our international listeners always have to deal with those weird start times for stuff. I got some tweets from some people who missed John Cena's heel turn because of what time it was. But to our Australian listeners, the fact that they're doing this Perth stuff, do you like it? Is it, obviously you'd prefer it to be on the East Coast of the country, but is it better than nothing? I don't know. Like, I'm very curious.
Yeah.
What you guys think. I really, really hope this Perth show is not in the fall.
Oh,
because I may not be able to watch it if that's the case.
Yeah. Some of these fall show times have been absolutely murderous for us. And yeah, we'd love to hear from our fans on the East Coast in Brisbane and Melbourne and Sydney. Like, what do you guys actually think of this? Are you angry? Are you just completely indifferent because it's the same as them doing a show in like Japan or California where you're not going to go and okay, the time is better for you, but that's it? Would love to know what you think about WWE continuing the relationship in Perth. Feel free to hit us up on social media. You can also email us, gettingoverpod@gmail.com. WWE ran an extended promo for Evolve, which actually debuts this Wednesday on Tubi. This was during the Elimination Chamber post-show. Most notable is that Kylie Ray, a WWE ID talent who's had a tumultuous career to this point. She's been in TNA. She was in AEW for a short period of time, but a long-term independent wrestler. She's going to be featured on the program. She's 32, which is not overly typical for what this show is supposed to be about, but it's clear they want to have a couple more veteran talents. Gallus and Wendy Chu are also going to be on this show. Brinley Reese, Kendall Gray, Keanu Carver, and Luca Crucifino are some other recognizable names from NXT. They're going to be on it off the top, and obviously Luca is still regularly on NXT. But for those who listen to our Thursday show, you'll remember I spoke about Brinley and Kendall not being ready for primetime NXT, so this fits. All in all, Evolve is going to give WWE a show for weeks where they either have a PLE or a Saturday night's main event, 6 out of 7 days. The only day off being Thursday, and that's because TNA Wrestling is on Thursday, where WWE talent will now regularly appear due to that deal. So effectively, at least 1 week a month, WWE will have live action 7 days a week now.
I know Luca Crucifino because I wrote a couple stories on him for The Athletic. Based on the clips I've seen, Evolve, is this at the Performance Center with just like no crowd?
I believe it is at the Performance Center. I don't believe there's no crowd. Actually, excuse me. I believe what I read about Evolve, and I was not able to confirm, is that there is a crowd, but it's all like friends, family, and PC trainees. They didn't want to have regular fans because they didn't want the results to be given away. Because it is a tape show. It's not a live show.
Well, no, and it's kind of, again, a different kind of wrestling. That's why I was just curious. It seems like they are trying to go for a different thing, because otherwise they could probably get a crowd there for it just from those.
Oh, they definitely could. What I'm trying to figure out is like, so LFG is a reality show, right? What I'm trying to figure out is Evolve like half wrestling show, half reality. Is it just a wrestling show like NXT? Like it seems like the formatting is going to be, I'm not sure what the formatting is going to be. So that's really, I'm actually pretty interested to tune in on Wednesday. I will tell you.
Is LFG just people who are trying to become wrestlers and are like learning how to do it, while Evolve is more kind of experienced people?
So LFG seems like it's more for the WWE NIL talents, and Evolve seems to be more for the WWE ID talents, but all of them are currently signed to Performance Center deals. I saw a misreport that they all have NXT contracts. It's actually not true. There is a difference between a big time NXT contract and a Performance Center deal, which many talents are on. So they all are on PC deals. They're not necessarily on NXT contracts. I think it's the LFG show, which is they're fighting for NXT contracts, whereas the Evolve show, they're pretty much already just part of the system.
That's what I figured.
Yeah. So that's the differential there. WWE held the kickoff for Elimination Chamber immediately before SmackDown in the same arena in Toronto, as opposed to in the afternoon at an outdoor venue as they have in the past. I found it to be much less interesting, especially from like a visual standpoint, and the fans were certainly nowhere near as like boisterous. Now, I'm sure I understand why it was done this way. The logistics are simpler. It was cold outside in Toronto. Booking another indoor venue, a separate venue, probably didn't make sense. And using a different part of that arena probably didn't make sense for security reasons. My point is, it just didn't come across as important to me as the prior kickoffs did. None of them really matter, but I used to get juiced up to see them. And this one, it was just like a post-show of Raw is kind of what it felt like. I guess a pre-show of Raw. Or SmackDown in this case.
Yeah, I didn't even know what was happening until like well after the fact. I've just totally missed it. I saw some clips. I was like, oh, I guess it makes sense that they still kind of do these, but they're definitely not as big as they were, you know, 6 months ago.
Yeah, no question. So Pat McAfee, during his show on Monday, addressed his Canada hate from Elimination Chamber, the broadcast, after, of course, the Canadian fans booed the American national anthem, the Star Spangled Banner. He also referred to it on Raw, in the same breath saying he loves his country, but doesn't like how American-made represents it, which completely missed that that's exactly why people booed the anthem in Canada. Anyway, I wanted to play a couple clips from his show. It was like a 3-minute statement that he made. I'm not going to play all of it, but I did want to play a couple of the things that he said here.
Now, Canada, listen, there's been some things said to me from Canadians that I guess I respect because of the passion that you have for your country, which I hope you understand that I was showing the same for mine. You booed my country. Now, I heard from a lot of Canadians during the national anthem, obviously, the Rogers Center, overwhelming boo. I mean, very loud boo. First reaction whenever a national anthem starts up there was for some of these Canadians just to start booing. And I'm like, what? Okay. Look, my entire life, my first reaction when somebody boos the national anthem is, fuck you.
Yeah.
That is my...
So I'm going to stop there. I actually completely agree with him to that point. That would have been my natural instinct for my entire life up until a couple months ago. I say this as someone who considers himself a patriot, who had an American flag literally flying above my bed when I was growing up. My favorite holiday most of my life was the 4th of July. My birth month is in July. I love New Year's Eve as well. But I wanted to pause there and let you know that in general, for the vast majority of my life, I actually agree with what he said there. Let's keep going.
Boo our national anthem. My natural reaction is let's fight. That is literally my natural reaction. Now, a lot of Canadians have told me, why don't you do a little investigating on why we're booing? Okay, did you hear what your president said? Okay, listen, I understand there's political differences at the current moment between us and Canada. But I feel like anytime I think of Canada, I don't think of what Justin Trudeau does. I don't think immediately of Justin Trudeau's decisions. I don't think immediately of what Canada is doing in the political sphere. I think of the people of Canada.
All right, let's fast forward a little bit more.
Understand now from the Canadians that they have a lot more passion for their country than I could have ever imagined. A lot of terrible things have been said about me, and I understand it. You boo my country. I called your country terrible. Let's shake hands, okay? You said you didn't boo every member of the United States or every citizen of the United States of America. Well, I didn't say the Canadians are terrible. I said your country was.
No, he said the fans were terrible. Here's the problem. That's not what you did, Pat. I don't think anyone had much of an issue with McAfee shooting back initially after it was over when the show started. The problem is that he did it 5 more times before the broadcast was over. He harped on it over and over again. And he was talking about the people. He was talking about the Canadian fans that WWE brought a premium live event to. They were excited to have it in their country. It was their broadcast. The people booed, not the country. So while McAfee says he listened to the Canadians who have brought this up to him, he's actually not hearing them. Justin Trudeau is not threatening annexation of our nation. He's not causing a rift in a strong alliance dating back centuries. If Canada or Mexico were threatening to annex the United States, Pat would be the first person booing their anthem just the same, as would I. Canadians were neither booing us as Americans, nor were they booing the United States as a country. That's a total misunderstanding of what they did on Saturday night. So yeah, Pat, I don't like anyone booing the Star-Spangled Banner. As an American, it really hurts me to hear it because I love our country. But unlike you, man, as an American, as someone who actually pays attention, the reason it hurts me is because I actually understand why they were booing.
To anybody who knows Pat McAfee or is familiar with him, he is one of the more insecure people in media. And I don't mean that necessarily as an insult. I just mean that as he reads everything that's said about him and reacts strongly to it. So he clearly was noticed all the comments that he was getting and had to kind of respond to that in some way and tried to do it in a friendly way and kind of make up for it. Look, I've done this show from Canada before, our podcast. My family has a cottage in Canada. Mm-hmm. I'm part Canadian, though I was born in America. And yeah, it's not complicated, like they're just, the leaders of this country are saying, we look down upon you so much that you should be a state of ours. And we're barely even going to say your name.
Right.
It's insulting. And
they're an ally. This isn't some other country,
it's just this isn't political. This is just kind of being a jerk.
Right. Exactly.
That's the whole problem. I understand why they did it. I don't like that they did it, but you got to understand where they're coming from here. And if it was the other way around, we'd be doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So hopefully McAfee can kind of get off of this. And
hopefully, man.
Just get back to talking about wrestling.
But you're right. You got to put the shoe on the other foot. Look, it hurt to hear that. I promise you it hurt to hear that. I hated it, but I understood. That's the difference. Let's move on.
I'm still hurting over that Four Nations final.
Yeah, that sucked too. We should have won that shit. Tough. We were all over them late in that. I mean, come on. I don't even like hockey, and I knew that we should have won that. All right, let's move on now. Rey Fenix has reportedly received his release from AEW. He will be headed to WWE imminently, and I have known that for a while. We've reported it on buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. The plan was for Fenix and Penta, real-life brothers, to tag in WWE. The problem now is Penta is insanely over as a singles babyface, and Fenix is perhaps an even more exciting wrestler. The gimmick isn't all the way there, but as a wrestler in ring, he's incredible. So how exactly do you book this if you're Paul Levesque? You don't want to give up singles Penta for tag team Lucha Brothers, but you want to get Fenix on TV, and then presumably you don't want them to be on separate brands, or they don't want to be on separate brands. So it's going to be real interesting to see how they put all this together. I assume he's going to be a Raw after WrestleMania surprise, given the date of everything. But it does look, Chris, like Fenix is headed into WWE, and it's going to be super interesting to see what they do with him.
Yeah, I hope not to get it spoiled. I'd like it to be a surprise. I was kind of annoyed the way the Penta stuff played out, where we all just kind of knew and talked about it. I don't like that. But for anybody who hasn't seen him, Rey Fenix might be the craziest, coolest wrestler out there.
Yeah.
Or at least he was a couple years ago before a couple of injuries. He's unbelievably talented and fun to watch. So yeah, I don't know. I don't really know what to do. I don't think Penta is so established that you can't do Lucha Brothers, but they got a good thing going with him right now as a singles wrestler. They got a good gimmick and a good promotion and all that. So we'll see. Don't need to rush it.
You can definitely do it. He's just like Hansel. He's so hot right now. And how do you go away from that to bring in someone new to team with him? It's not like they wouldn't be hot together. They would be.
I mean, look, Jade Cargill came in and pretty quickly just became a tag team. So
Yeah, and you could say she kind of lost her aura because of that to a degree, because she was splitting time with Bianca Belair on screen. You got to be careful with that. But I mean, Fenix, when he comes in, I call him Phoenix, whatever. It's going to be phenomenal. And yeah, you're right. He and El Hijo del Vikingo were really the two most notable high flyers. And Penta obviously is a luchador, but in terms of awe-inspiring ability, and for Fenix to be coming into WWE, it's going to be pretty cool. WWE has spent a lot of time over the last, let's say 6 months, maybe even a year, Chris, spotlighting and promoting fan signs. This only popped into my head because I saw the crowd in Toronto for SmackDown. Signs were everywhere. I mean, there had to be more signs out there than any year since, I'll just pick a bullshit one off the top of my head, like 2006 or something like that. So I was expecting a fantastic crowd on Friday night. It left a lot to be desired. Shockingly quiet. This despite, Chris, Friday night easily being the best edition of SmackDown in at least a month, if not longer. That show was a huge step up, especially from the last 2 weeks. And Raw on Monday night was exceptional as well. The Buffalo crowd ebbed and flowed, up and down. They had some moments where they were deserving of praise, and other moments like the main event where they just did not come alive. So a little bit of a mixed bag from the actual crowds, but the shows this week, we've been critical of WWE recently. SmackDown and Raw, huge step up from the last couple of weeks.
Absolutely. And like we said, we were hoping once we get through Elimination Chamber, you start to kind of pick it up because there's a lot to get going, and they have, and 2 good shows. It'd been a minute since we had that.
Yeah, and it definitely energized both of us as we get into this episode. Now, we have a ton more to talk about, but I do need to remind you.
I happen to love the number 5.
And I hope you do as well, because for $5 a month or $50 for the entire year, you can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover, sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reaction audio to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. That's buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. And we are on a huge upswing with this service. We added not 1, not 2, you get the point. We added 6 new official Getting Overheads over the last week, probably our best week since opening. We greatly appreciate all of you. We've been lacking a bit on those instant reactions due to a taping schedule. I'll be out and about again this week, but we will do our best to add extra content to the page to make up for it. So shouts out to Bauman 007, Nate M, Mike, Harris B, all joining us as annual members. Newman, hello Newman, and Paul also signed up for monthly subscriptions. Bauman said, absolute best wrestling podcast out there. Nothing makes my work commute better than Adam and Chris. I'm definitely excited to become a Getting Overhead, and I'm all about the 5. Mike said, longtime listener from the UK, love what you do. Paul said, I have always enjoyed the show since the ITC days. Love the content and especially the instant analysis pods. You all do great work. And Harris said, g'day, boys. Been a fan of Silver King and his podcast since the ITC days. I remember how much UNBC would push for Triple H to get the book back then. And here we are living it. Yes, we are. It's been long overdue for myself to support the Getting Over pod, and I'm glad I can do my part to support the work done by SK and Vintage. Keep up the amazing work, fellas. I acknowledge you. Well, we greatly appreciate that, Harris. Good day to you. So you, Paul, Mike, Bauman, Nate M, and Newman, we acknowledge you.
Acknowledge. Big acknowledgement right there.
Acknowledge.
Now, when I tell you that we have a loaded second look for WWE Elimination Chamber, I am not exaggerating. This is some of the most interaction we've ever had here on the podcast, coming out of that epic SummerSlam a couple years ago, WrestleMania 40. This might be third, the way people reacted to everything that happened at Elimination Chamber. The goal here is not to repeat anything we discussed on the instant analysis. We delivered 2 hours of performance-enhancing audio for you on Saturday night. So please, if you have not heard it already, ensure you go back and listen to that entire show. It's in the process of becoming a top 5 episode in program history, already in the top 10. We're really proud of the show we put out after Chamber. To start here, though, Chris, all my match grades held, no changes. And I also want to note, we're reading a bunch of questions and comments on the show, but we got 5 times as many at a minimum. I had to draw the line somewhere. I just want you all to know, if you wrote us, I read it. Live during the show, after the show, whenever you sent it, I read it. Thank you all for interacting and supporting us. So let's start with the men's elimination chamber. John Cena, Seth Rollins, CM Punk, Drew McIntyre, Damian Priest, and Logan Paul. Chris, it was extremely strange. And by the way, jump in whenever you want here. It was extremely strange how many fantastic on-screen elements WWE added for the Royal Rumble, only to not do any of them for the chamber matches. I'm not even sure there were name labels on the pods, but you could tell the audience had delayed reactions to every entrant because they couldn't tell who was chosen until they actually exited the pod and got into the ring. I think the interior of the pods need to light up, and there needs to be name labels. There has to be more into the presentation of Chamber, because just treating it like a cage match does not work.
It's what I said on the instant analysis. You got to play the entrance music when it's them.
You got to do something.
The flashing lights and the buzzer, it's never worked. It's never worked. They have done this for like a decade or so. You don't create the reaction. I know they've already done their entrance. When it's CM Punk's time to come in, just play the just play his music for 5 seconds. People will pop for the music, and then he comes in. It's like a little thing. You made a good point about the production and not being able to tell everything.
Mm-hmm.
I had one production comment as well, just for the whole show.
Sure.
Which was, there weren't many like wide shots. I kept forgetting this was in a giant baseball stadium.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Compared to the Rumble, how often we got those faraway shots, football stadium and all this stuff, we just did not get many look at this giant crowd we have shots. And I was really surprised they didn't lean into that more.
I wonder if there were blank areas and sections, because it obviously wasn't completely sold out. I mean, I think they came close to selling out their setup, but not necessarily the entire stadium. So perhaps they felt like some of those wide shots wouldn't look good. But now that you say that, I watched it back, the last couple of days, I don't recall any more than one perhaps at the start of the show. And that was it.
There was one or two I remember, but those shots make everything feel bigger.
Yeah, they make them feel grandiose.
This is gigantic.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm surprised they didn't do that.
Absolutely. So in this match, there was a really sweet moment when Punk stepped through the ropes with Cena. He was waiting. He said, "I missed you." And then he replied, "I missed you as well." That was punctuated during the STF when Cena screamed, "I'm sorry," while knocking Punk out cold. And seeing all this, I just realized how many incredible matchups are now possible for this year, because basically everyone we want him fighting in his final year, they're all currently baby faces. Cody Rhodes, CM Punk, Randy Orton, AJ Styles, just to name a few. Austin Theory could easily turn face. Cena can get his win back over him as a heel.
Let's not go too far.
I'm just saying, he could. Punk should probably, I think, Chris, be the one who beats Cena for the title if he actually wins it. And I also think Cena's final match should probably be someone young like Braun Breaker. But those were just all thoughts I had watching him win Elimination Chamber and obviously turn heel later in the show. What I wanted to point out about Cena is he wrestled extremely well in this match. His best match by far, probably in a decade. He's been pretty bad on the one-offs the last couple of years. Helping matters is that he spent a lot of time wrestling Punk, and their chemistry together is absolutely off the charts. Michael Cole did a great job after the match, pointing out how hate cost Drew McIntyre and Seth Rollins the match. Drew taunted Cena rather than pin him. Rollins went after Punk instead of Cena, who was basically dead in the pod and could have easily been pinned after that bomb. Rollins was also phenomenal in the finish. He was yelling, "Die, die, die," through the cage wall as Punk passed out, as Cena, I mentioned, was yelling sorry. Missed opportunity to do the arm drop knockout. You and I always want that. Instead, he just passed out. And I just think it's more dramatic when you do the arm, and I know you agree. Casey Bartley at C. Bartley Rivals wrote in, "Cherry on the Sunday, Seth unwittingly helping create another monster heel by helping Cena win." It's actually true. Perhaps Cena would have turned even if he didn't win the match in kayfabe, but Rollins has now been the inflection point for multiple major plot changes and character adjustments during his WWE career. It's actually kind of remarkable. Did you have anything that I mentioned or otherwise about the men's elimination chamber?
This match was a lot better wrestling than I remembered.
I told you
live.
Yeah,
it was, and there were a lot more moments than I remembered. And there's a guy on Twitter, CV Highlights 247, no relation. He put together a music video to this, to a Disturbed song, and like I say, that's the kind of music I associate with pro wrestling. So it was 100% my jam. And I watched this thing 10 times. It got me real fired up watching this match. And I was like, man, there was a lot of great stuff in here that I think I forgot in the moment. And the reason I think that is, it kind of goes back to production. Camera work in the chamber matches are terrible because there's no natural good angle. There's no hard cam that you can do. And so there's a lot of times you'll see the camera lean over the top rope and look downward in, and it takes me out of it. It feels like I'm watching guys who are pretending wrestling maybe it's because it's just a camera angle I'm not used to.
You hate the chamber, man. Wow.
I do, man. It's just they don't produce it well. It's very difficult. It's not as it technically, really, it's more vicious on the wrestlers than Hell in a Cell, but it's not presented that way. But the camera angles, like, there's no really good way to film it, and I think that takes me out of it. It makes the moments feel not as big, and so I that bothered me in both the chamber matches. You already mentioned it, the Punk tapping out instead of tapping. I'm sorry, passing out instead of tapping. Like, there are moments where it calls for it, but everybody passes out. Like, nobody taps on these things anymore.
In WWE, like, no one submits. AEW, it's a problem as well, but like nobody submits in WWE anymore.
Yeah, so it's just like, okay. And I didn't like Cena in hindsight, I didn't like Cena saying, I'm sorry. I was kind of thinking like maybe there should have been kind of more signals that Cena was being heelish when you look back on it, but there really wasn't. And he
took advantage of Rollins doing the stomp. In the past, he would not have done it that way. He wouldn't have dragged someone and then choked them out. He would have picked them up, done an AA, gotten the 1, 2, 3 at a minimum.
Yeah.
He was vicious in the finish.
But he was saying, I'm sorry too, though.
Because of the respect that they showed each other earlier in the match. He can have the issue with Cody and still like Punk.
Maybe. So, and then I thought the commentary in the end was a little kind of all over the place.
It was.
Like, it could have emphasized Punk lost his chance at the main event of WrestleMania, and John Cena is going for 17. Instead, it was kind of, they're like talking about Punk Rollins a lot. And I was like, that's not the thing to build right now. The thing to build is Cena winning and Punk losing. Yeah. But anyway, I said that before.
I still disagree with that, just because they were trying to build the other feud, knowing that the Cena feud was going to get built minutes later,
I know. I still didn't like it.
Sure.
But other than that, overall, it was better than I thought on first glance.
Getting to the main event segment, Cody Rhodes answering The Rock whether he will sell him his soul. Bunch of notes here. When I said Rock looked like Elvis in the vest, I didn't even realize that dude was also wearing bell bottoms. I laughed so hard seeing that on replay, that this guy's in bell bottoms that are flared out with slits in them. I mean, the look was ridiculous. We criticized Rock's acting a bunch the last 10 days, deservingly so. But I got to give him credit for the deliberate way in which he gave Cena looks, and he stalked around the ring as Cena murked Rhodes. He was super intimidating during this segment. This was real Final Boss. This is the guy that we wanted during this segment. One angle that we really did not touch in terms of how Cena's turn can be justified is he's decided to take shortcuts because he's realized, hey, I haven't won a match as a singles competitor in 5 years. I lost to Jey Uso at the Royal Rumble in the final 2. I can't keep up with today's superstars. I need to take shortcuts. This is in contrast to when he refused to let John Laurinaitis help him while he was holding Punk in an STF during Money in the Bank over a decade ago. Consider what happened here. Cena put himself in chamber because it was best for business. No one argued. He accepted the easy way out in order to win with Rollins' stomp, and then he turned on Cody, the latter two inside of about 15 minutes. I thought it was actually one of the more comprehensive heel turns that I can remember, doing all of that in a pretty short window of time, Chris.
So on the Cena point, I kept coming back to two things. One, what if he had lost? Like it was all kind of contingent on him winning.
Yes.
And he didn't cheat to win. He was actually pretty lucky to win. So there's no real answer to that, but it's just something I thought about.
Yeah, I think the answer could have been, like, if I'm going to do the whole William Regal deal where, like, I explain kayfabe, he would just hang around the ring anyway, and he'd get Cody's back because Rock was there. Don't forget, Cena had his back last year at WrestleMania. So he could have been there anyway. And it could have been like Rock and Travis Scott on one side, Cody and Cena on the other. And then it could have played out the exact same way, and Cena gets involved in the match.
And the other thing was, people compared it to, obviously, to the Hulk Hogan turn at Bash at the Beats 1996.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with that, and it's where I come back to that same point, Hogan turned to, like, impact the outcome of that match, to win that, what was a 6-man or a tag team match. So it's I'm not ready to say it's Hogan NWO. We kind of got to wait in hindsight to see where it goes.
We absolutely need to wait for that. There was a lot of talk about the Toronto crowd not selling the Cena heel turn well. I actually want to make a mea culpa to a degree. Watching the show back, the Toronto crowd was better than I gave it credit for being during significant parts of the show. It still fell off in many situations, including the Cena heel turn. I agree with the criticism there. I do believe their reaction was somewhat reasonable, though. This is not 1995. It's 2025. And Cena turning heel is something fans have wanted for a decade, if not longer. The Hollywood Hogan deal at Bash at the Beach, this is what reminded me to mention this. It happened when the average fan was far less smart than they are today. It was the greatest babyface of all time who had never been heel, making the most shocking turn in history. Cena was a guy we thought would never turn back heel, but he had been a heel before. And the segment set up in such a way that his turn was a little bit less surprising than Hogan's apples to apples. But again, while I didn't expect trash thrown in the ring, I did think the heat would be more massive on him, and it was not. It seemed the fans were just attentive and excited rather than vociferously angry, which is what you would have expected in a situation like this. And also, when you compare the Cena turn to the Hogan turn, which everyone is trying to do, they really don't hold up to one another. When Hogan turned heel and became Hollywood Hogan, it literally changed the entire industry.
Right.
Cena turning heel here was epic. It's the biggest heel turn since Hogan, but it's not changing the industry. It is creating an absolute fire program for WrestleMania, and perhaps the fallout from it is going to be epic, but it is not changing the industry, not in 2025. So Hogan still gets to hold that candle, and Eric Bischoff gets a lot of credit for doing that. But does that diminish this in any way? Absolutely not. You just cannot compare it apples to apples.
Yeah, and like, again, we have to see where it goes to kind of fully compare. But like the NWO and Hollywood Hogan was a thing for like 6 years. Like that was a whole era.
But it also that moment led to WWE losing the Monday Night War.
Yes,
and 83 weeks and so on and so forth. I mean,
I'm just saying, 6 years later, we got Hogan Rock at WrestleMania 18, and he was still Hollywood Hogan.
Right.
Like it's not. We're not going to be getting John Cena in 6 years doing this gimmick. This is a very short-term thing. So it is going to be a little bit different in that sense. In terms of the crowd, when you say the reaction, do you mean the facial turn, the kick, or just the whole thing?
I'm talking about the entirety of the crowd's reaction. When Rock does the throat thing and Cena's face turns and he low blows him and he starts beating him, the crowd goes apeshit for it. They reacted solidly to it. But then they just kind of sat there and watched him kick the shit out of Cody when, if, again, you circle back to Bash at the Beach, they were throwing garbage in the ring and they never stopped booing.
We got to bring throwing garbage back.
Toronto, and Toronto just did not live up to that portion of it. But I do believe significantly one of the reasons why is because they were excited and engaged in it. They wanted to see what was happening. They weren't angry like people were when Hogan turned, because people have wanted Cena to turn, and they were so shocked and excited by it. Just like when Brock Lesnar pinned The Undertaker and ended the streak, it wasn't consistent booing the entire time. The reaction was utter shock. That's what you remember, that guy's face with his eyes bugging out. You don't remember people booing them out of the arena.
Yeah. This is the thing. So, by the way, WWE's production, they didn't quite get...
Yeah, not all the way.
They didn't get the beginning of the throat slash. By the time they get to it, he's like halfway through it. So they did kind of just barely miss it a little bit, which is tough. So I don't know if that had any impact on the crowd or whatever, knowing what was going on. But the thing about heel Cena is like most of our reactions was, oh, that's cool. And Cena, we're going to have to make sure, because like Cena is beloved now by Smarks and everybody.
Yes.
Like, he's been beloved for a while.
What is the reaction going to be to him? Is that what you're asking?
Is the reaction going to be, oh man, this John Cena is so cool?
No, he's going to get booed.
And people booed Rock because he teamed up with Roman and because Cody was so hot, and we thought, and he was, taking the main event away from Cody.
Yes.
So this is going to be a test for Cody and that white meat babyface heat. They're going to have to make sure John Cena does things to get himself booed.
Well, absolutely.
Like The Rock did.
But don't forget, that's how over Cody is as a face. That WWE's been able to turn Rock and Cena heel in consecutive years because they have Cody.
Yes. It's only reason they were able to do it is because they have their new Cena, which is him.
Yeah.
But people turned on Cena at one point, and people will turn on Cody at some point because they will just kind of get bored of
eventually, maybe. But WWE needs to cool down a lot for people to turn on Cody, because that's not the crowd right now. That's not the fan base.
But again, when Cena comes back, whenever that is, he's going to really have to be a heel and not just be cool.
Absolutely.
And to The Rock's credit, last year, he did that. He made you boo him. He told everybody to go home and smoke some more crack and was excellent. And so Cena's going to have to do some of that stuff.
Now go home and smoke some more crack.
That's the best drop. That's the best drop we have on the show. Also, funny thing, yesterday I get McDonald's on the way home from something, and the McDonald's say, like, here's your order, and it's John Cena on the drive-thru saying, "You got the goods." So I tweeted at McDonald's and I said, "I'm never eating here again after what John Cena did to Cody Rhodes." I'll let you know if I get a response.
Very nice.
Last thought on this.
All right, you're going on a rampage here. All right, go ahead, hit me.
This truly was a generational moment.
Mm-hmm.
You can only do this once in a generation. To have somebody who has been on top and has been a good guy for 20 years, basically.
Yeah, no,
there's just
21 years.
There's just not a lot of guys who can do that. Just like the Undertaker streak. You can only break the streak if you've had that for so long.
Yeah.
So this really was a moment.
There's literally, Chris, there's no one in WWE right now who would be the next one of these. I mean, it would be Cody, potentially.
But you'd have to do it for another, 10 years.
That's what I'm saying. And Bianca Belair, maybe, from the female side, because she's never been heel. But you would have to do that for such an extended period of time. It's impossible. It's almost impossible these days. And this might be the last one of these that we see, at least to this level. That's why it was so remarkable.
Because no one has the patience anymore to have something go that long. And
well, that's a lot of patience to ask. I mean, we didn't have the patience for, if we got our way, this wouldn't have happened for Cena, right? He would have turned heel 7 years ago.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
and no company would have been stubborn enough to probably keep that going for that long.
Only one man would have been stubborn enough to keep him face this entire time.
And he's not here anymore.
Yeah, he's not here anymore. Exactly.
It really was a generational moment. And as I kind of look back on the whole thing, I was like, man, that's something that will go down in the annals.
It was. I want to give some credit to Vish at KANANIVI83, who asked a question about comparing Hogan and Cena Bash at the Beach to Elimination Chamber. I was going to answer it, but Chris jumped in front of you. Brett Malam at Brett Malam on Blue Sky. He asked us if this was the most shocking moment in wrestling since Brock Lesnar ended the Undertaker's streak at WrestleMania, which was 11 years ago. We kind of addressed it, but Chris, I actually do believe that is true. This is the most shocking moment since then.
Since then, yes. I would say that was more shocking.
Definitely more shocking.
Because we talked ourselves into John Cena a week prior. So you always knew, maybe there was nothing in my mind that made me think Brock Lesnar was beating Undertaker.
I remember making the prediction for that match. I was like, The Undertaker, let's move on. What are we even doing here? Yeah. And then Lesnar beat him straight up. A couple other items from this match. Realized that the reason I first thought Cena was using brass knuckles instead of the gold Rolex is because Michael Cole called it that way. I thought my eyes were deceiving me, but that was another unfortunate error from Cole in a key situation. And really, like you mentioned, commentary wasn't great at the end of Elimination Chamber, but for this, it was almost non-existent. There was no major memorable call or anything, despite it probably being a top 10 moment in WWE history, at least outside of a match. It's also interesting to remember, and I hope it plays into the storyline, that Cena went after Rock 11 months ago to literally help Cody win the title in the Avengers Endgame conclusion to Cody finishing his story. They're going to have to figure out a way to weave that into this story. Cena thought he was doing the right thing at WrestleMania 40. He has since realized otherwise. Either that, or he's so greedy to beat Ric Flair's record that he threw out his morals just to do it. It has to get explained. I'm sure it will be. The promos between Cody and Cena now going forward, they are going to be absurdly great, and I'm extremely excited for that. Eddie S. at eSupple on Blue Sky, he asked us, do you think Cena will get a makeover now that he is heel? Buzz cut, no more jorts, colorful t-shirt, hat to match the local team. Could he actually wrestle in traditional trunks? What say you? Well, first of all, Cena should spray paint his bald spot like Hogan spray painted his beard. That would be hysterical and it would be fitting. But there's two ways they can play this from a visual standpoint, Chris. One is Cena dressing exactly the same. In his mind, he did nothing wrong. He's still the top guy in WWE. He's still the same person. It's just that Cody is not doing what's best for business. The other, more exciting and more likely way is Cena doing a total 180 visually. And that's really what should happen. I wouldn't say trunks, but maybe long black jeans or pants instead of blue jean shorts, a flat brimmed hat. He's going to have to wear the hat because of the bald spot. Black shirts and hats with one color instead of the multicolor rainbow shirts. That's the way I would do it. What about you?
So like plain black shirts or black shirts that like have logos on it and are cool like the NWO?
Black shirt with like his logo, but only white and one color for the city, as opposed to like all the colors of the city.
Oh, so you're even going to do city shirts?
Because he thinks in his head he's doing it because he's best for business, because he's the one that fans like. That's what I think he keeps doing that. Also, WWE is going to want to sell those shirts.
Well, that's the thing. They're going to want to sell the shirts.
Yeah.
But I love the idea of him just coming out in plain black and nothing.
What about like a wife beater and black pants? Just that's
he's not doing it for the fans. He's doing it for himself. That's what this whole thing is about.
Yeah.
I think that'd be, yes, it's got to be different. I mean, he had said, a couple of years ago to Chris Vanderlei, like he was going to turn heel against The Rock back in like 2013. They had a song ready. They had some gear ready. Maybe they just go to that. Maybe they don't. I think he said it was a similar version of Time Is Now, but it was like, it wasn't trumpets. It was like saxophone or something. I don't know. So it's a little bit different. But I'm fascinated to see what it looks like. I would love plain nothing, or maybe he just dresses up fancy like The Rock. I mean, if it's going to be him and Rock, they should maybe kind of be similar.
Or maybe they actually create like a group name of some kind and they sell those shirts and they make like a mini, it's not a faction because it's not 4 people, but like a mini group, and they sell
I would buy a Break-A-Wish Foundation.
Yeah, I know you would. I know you're really happy and excited about that, and I know you got a lot of social media engagement on that.
I did, yeah.
Congratulations. I think it's a smart name for Cena. I don't think it really works with like both him and Rock, but that's just me personally. The Cena redemption arc to conclude his career over the final few months this winter, I think it's going to be fantastic. This is a paradigm, by the way, of not coasting off one's legacy, but actually adding to it. 2025 was going to be memorable no matter what Cena did. This gives it the opportunity to reach a completely different level. I kind of just wanted to end on that note, but we have a number of other topics here that people have been asking us and bringing up. One item was Travis Scott's involvement. Some people had an issue with it. I did not, Chris. His presence, for me, it created this uncertainty with the heel turn. I think it would have been even more blatant without him there. I've seen comparisons to Dennis Rodman in the NWO. That kind of plays to a degree, but Rodman came in well after NWO was established, not during the Bash at the Beach turn. WWE wanted to maximize the reach of this turn. Integrating Travis Scott in the segment achieved that. Him getting physically involved, it also opens the door to a ton of options. For example, who's had Cody's back recently? Like at Bad Blood, Metro Boomin. Those guys could brawl. Bad Bunny took issue with this on social media. He could get involved. It may not result in equal celebrity on the other side. It may not result in celebrities fighting. But at worst, Travis Scott serves as further proof of the star power of The Rock and John Cena. It enhances their gimmick and storyline. In fact, over the ensuing weeks and months, it would be cool to see additional celebrities side with them and go heel and say, yeah, we're Hollywood. F you, Cody. We don't believe in your shit. Like, that would be really cool if they did that.
Well, Shannon Sharp did, I think, as well. He's siding with Cody. If Travis
He's
Scott,
siding with Cody or Rock?
With Cody, I think.
I think Stephen A. Smith sided with Rock, if that sounds correct.
If Travis Scott and Bad Bunny brawled, That would be the biggest thing in WWE history.
It'd be unbelievable, yeah.
Like reach wise.
Yeah.
Like bigger than anything. That'd be crazy. And it's legitimately possible. In the moment, I thought Travis Scott was kind of weird. In hindsight, I thought it was fine.
Yeah.
And it fit the look. Like, even if you don't know who Travis Scott is,
That's the thing, yeah.
he looks like a heel. You know, like
He did.
He looked like he fit there. He's like, who is this kind of shady?
He was
dude hanging out
glomming
with
off the
Rock?
situation, right? Like, yeah. Exactly.
I thought it worked fine.
One question we received from many of you was whether we believed The Rock's appearance at Bad Blood and the mannerisms, counting to 3, the throat slit, were all teases specifically for this moment. The problem with believing that is there's a lot of stretching required. I'm more likely to think they retconned it to all fit together as opposed to it being a specific tease. Because you also have to remember, that was October 5th, and Roman Reigns was there as well. So in order for that to have been a direct tease of this, in kayfabe, Chris, we need to believe that 5 months ago, The Rock was going to continue befriending Cody with the sole purpose of turning on him with John Cena. Forget for a moment that Cody could have lost the title at any point between now and then, or Cena could have actually gone and won the Royal Rumble. Plus, does the 3 that he held up refer to Cena's hand gesture, or do the 2 fingers across the throat mean there is still one more person to go? And why does Rock not know how to do a slit throat gesture, by the way? He moves it like up his jaw to his ear. It was so weird. I digress. It's nice when stuff fits together. There are parts of Bray Wyatt's promo on Cena from before the Firefly Funhouse match that fit perfectly with this story, but you know it wasn't planned 5 years ago. What I do know for sure, and what, unlike others, we have been telling you from the beginning, was that nothing happening involving Rock was fly-by-the-seat improv from a storyline perspective. WWE knew what they were doing at the Raw on Netflix debut, what Rock was going to do when announcing WrestleMania. The moment was set in stone. The thing that changed was the timing of the Mania announcement for all the reasons we've discussed here on buymeacoffee.com/gettingover and elsewhere multiple times. But they knew what they were doing from January onward. To think that back in October, he did the 1, 2, 3 and then the throat thing, and that was all meant for Cena, having needed all of this to transpire perfectly in order for this moment to happen, I struggled to suspend the disbelief to that level.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't rule it out. I think it's more likely. Yeah, they retconned it because he didn't put up the 3. He did a 1, 2. He counted.
Right.
Like he did 1, 2, 3 type of. So it was a little bit different. I'm perfectly fine retconning it and saying that's what it was. I think that's, whether it was lucky or not, that was cool. I think that's easier for me to get behind than the timing of all of this, which I know you just laid it all out, but like, you should have sold the Cody Rhodes soul thing a lot more than 1 week before you did it. You know, like that's where I think it could have been done a lot better, along with what he actually said. But yeah, I doubt it. A lot of reports at the time where there weren't plans. I don't care. I don't really care at this point.
Yeah, I mean, again, those reports just weren't true. I can't stress that enough. Simple as that. A user on Reddit pointed out that Cody has been on an incredible WrestleMania run since returning. But when I had the chance to actually break it down myself and like look into it deeper, it honestly came across, Chris, as astonishing. This is going to be the 4th WrestleMania for Cody since he's returned to WWE and his 5th match. Here's the way he's been booked. 38, surprise return against Seth Rollins, one of the show's best moments, an all-time memorable WrestleMania moment. 39, main events against Roman Reigns as the Royal Rumble winner, takes a crushing loss. 40, enters as back-to-back Royal Rumble winner. Main events night 1 against The Rock alongside Rollins and Reigns. Main events night 2, finishes his story, gets revenge over Reigns, and he gets help from Cena and The Undertaker to win the championship. All of this happening because of a forced pivot because fans were so deeply behind him. Another all-time WrestleMania moment. And now 41, entering as a year-long champion to face a legend in Cena's final WrestleMania match, who just turned heel for the first time in 20 years, aligning with Rock. This may legitimately be the greatest 4-year run for a single performer in WrestleMania history. When you consider the prominence of the matches and the opponents, main eventing 4 nights in 3 years with a huge return the other year. It exceeds what Roman did with Brock Lesnar and the 3 matches with Cody because heel Cena exceeds Lesnar. Cena, Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, they have not done this. It's probably at least the greatest WrestleMania run since Hulk Hogan. He went Andre, Macho Man, Warrior across 4 straight years. Then he did Slaughter, Sid, and Yokozuna in the 3 that followed. That's pretty untouchable for that period in WWF. But if you look at what Cody's doing now and the way he's building the business back or leading the business being built back, it's 1A and 1B with Hulk Hogan. I seriously believe that.
I mean, I would put Roman up there. He had Edge, Daniel Bryan, Brock Lesnar, Cody, Rock, Rollins, Cody.
Yeah.
Cody. Like, it's right up there.
That's what I'm explaining, though, is that the Cena match exceeds the Lesnar match, which was panned, by the way.
But I'm just saying.
And the level of business now is totally different.
I'm just saying, to have a WrestleMania match with Brock Lesnar is...
No, it's significant, but I'm saying if you put Cody over Roman, which I would, then the only person that you can compare him to now is Hulk Hogan.
I guess. I mean, I put the 3 of them together, and just in terms of not quality of the matches, but just in terms of
I'm saying the momentousness of the booking.
Yeah, Roman is the one who kind of brought the company up, but
don't forget the sentiment though for Roman at those first couple of matches. Like, it was way different than what you're talking about now.
He was the heel.
No, even when he was a face against Lesnar.
Was he? No, he wasn't.
In New Orleans?
No, in Dallas.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, in Dallas he was a heel when he merged the titles, when he unified the titles.
Yeah, when he merged the titles. The match sucked, but they were didn't they call it the biggest WrestleMania?
They did. The greatest WrestleMania match of all time. Yeah. I put Cody above the Roman run, but I'll take the argument. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
Brett Charles Malam, so he hit us up on Blue Sky apparently and Twitter. He said, I doubt they renege on this. Then again, wrestling is wrestling. They're all carnies. But we are now dealing with an unreliable narrator in John Cena. So it has me rethinking whether this is actually the end of his career this year. What do you put the odds that it's not, that he keeps wrestling past 2025? So you're right that he technically now is an unreliable narrator. He wasn't when he made the announcement. So look, WWE is not the Rolling Stones. They're not going to do a fake farewell tour, even if the company is all about profit these days. So I'd say a 0% chance, unless there's like a compelling creative reason that requires him to keep the title until Royal Rumble 2026, or someone gets injured and they have to push it off a month or something like that. But that would be the maximum. I don't think he's wrestling at all past basically this year.
I agree. But he might need to say that. He might need to say, I'm going to win the title and retire with it. I don't know.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Martin McDonald at Martin Mac 1, he said, hey guys, just wondering if you think this is building up to what was meant to happen last year. And that is Stone Cold Steve Austin returning to take down Rock in the main event of WrestleMania. So there's going to be a lot of time to discuss WrestleMania possibilities. Steve Austin getting Cody's back in Las Vegas, where he lives. And by the way, he'll absolutely be at WrestleMania 41. It makes a lot of sense to even the odds with Rock, as does Roman Reigns potentially as a swerve. Rock thinks he's out there to help him. He actually helps Cody. That kicks off the WrestleMania 42 build. Lots of options. Austin will definitely be at WrestleMania. I don't necessarily know that he will be in this match, but I have a hankering that he will at this point.
Yeah, he doesn't live in Vegas, but he does live in the middle of nowhere in the desert in Nevada.
He can get there by driving is the point.
Yeah. My colleague, Christopher Camerani, wrote a great story, went and visited him in Nevada to talk about just his whole, what he's doing right now. And in that story, he hated how his match with Kevin Owens went. Like, it really bothered him.
Really?
Yeah, which surprised me. He thought he could have done so much better. But the story ends with him saying, he doesn't really want to travel anywhere for WrestleMania or something like that. But this one's in Nevada.
Yep.
So it'd be really easy.
Right there, and extremely easy for him. Austin Herzog at Austin Herzog wrote in, I wish there was a competition for fantasy booking, because you, sir, and I think he means sirs, you and I, would be the reigning, defending, undisputed champion. The Cena alignment with Rock, even though there were some clues. What a call. Bravo.
Congratulations to me.
I hope we didn't spoil it for anybody.
How could we have? We didn't know.
No, but like we talked about it, we'd like put the like sometimes I don't really like listening to podcasts for TV shows where they talk about theories because sometimes I don't want to think about it. I want to be surprised by whatever happens. So I hope nobody got pre-spoiled by us.
I mean, all I can say is we received 0 responses like that. It was all, wow, that was such a great conversation. I really want that to happen. And we cautioned everyone too, hey, just because we're fantasy booking this, just because we're booking the damn territory, don't be upset when it doesn't happen. Like we literally said when it doesn't happen, and yet it went ahead and happened. So that's why I said.
Congratulations to me.
And lastly, Rob's Zombie at Toe Fugitive on Blue Sky said, can't wait for this to be added to the soundboard. So here you go, buddy.
Hey, Rock, go fuck yourself.
Moving to the Women's Elimination Chamber, Liv Morgan, Bianca Belair, Naomi, Bayley, Alexa Bliss, and Roxanne Perez. Couple brilliant moments from the start of this match. Bayley and Bianca were shown dancing in their pods during Naomi's entrance. That was selling how much of a massive face and good friend to both of them that she is. So when Jade's music hit, the camera was focused on Liv for a moment. Naomi can be seen turning and giving Bianca a like WTF face. They were also both wearing all white, which directly contrasted with Jade in black leather. Usually that would indicate faces and heels, but as we discussed, it might be the opposite this time. Bliss made an incredible concerned face in her pod watching that beatdown happen. I'm not sure if this was the purpose, but what I took from the expression was, holy shit, I've been gone 2 years. What the hell is going on here? Who is this chick? It just made me laugh, like thinking about what she was thinking. It's always tough to appreciate big moments on shows when I write notes for the podcast. Being able to watch Jade's return without typing, I feel like I actually undersold the level to which her attack was amazing. The boot into the pod was insane. It's the most vicious she's ever looked. And then immediately storming out with the job done, total badass. On the other hand, ringing the bell and keeping the cage door wide open, that required a real suspension of disbelief. So I didn't totally love that. I wish the door was almost closed and then she pried it open. Something like that. We praised Liv for being the MVP of this match extensively on Saturday. Deservingly so. I wanted to point out her post on social media showing bruises not only on her stomach from the hair whip, but all over both of her arms. She got her ass kicked and she was still the MVP of the match. Kudos to her. And last, it's pretty amazing, Chris, when you look back, Cena and Belair both won WrestleMania #1 contenderships again, and they did it on the exact same night. And 0 fans, smart fans, casual fans, whomever, are upset about it. It's also ironic that the Royal Rumble winners were met with such disdain, and the Chamber winners have almost been nothing but praised.
Yeah, I wouldn't say 0. I did see some online discourse about Bianca being Super Cena and
near
always
0.
having to be
How about that?
a title or whatever. But no, because it set up. I mean, for one, Cena was, it's the record and that whole thing. But Bianca winning, we thought Bianca probably Rhea, and that's a match everybody wants to see.
Mm-hmm.
So like everybody was, for the most part, everybody was cool with it. And again, you can have those types of people win if you have a compelling like story and reason, and those two did.
Absolutely. I had no more notes on Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, or the women's tag team match. Did you have anything?
I saw a rumor going around that it was real barbed wire and not worked barbed wire. I don't understand why that would be the case.
There's no way.
It wouldn't make any sense. Also, again, he didn't bleed when he went face first into it.
Yeah.
It'd
be one thing. It'd be one thing not to see it in the back because he was wearing a black shirt. So like maybe that's possible. But his arm, side of his head, it hit that barbed wire. You would see scrapes at a minimum, dots of blood. There was nothing. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
It's not possible.
It was really good. It really highlighted how crazy that night was to have 3 matches, and in them you have John Cena's heel turn, Jade's return, and Randy Orton's return.
Mm-hmm.
Like they gave you some giant ass moments.
And Kevin Owens killed Sami Zayn, which is exactly what we wanted to happen. And by the way, Trish Stratus wrestled, and it's like the last headline on the entire show.
Yeah. Yeah.
So moving to the Elimination Chamber post-show press conference, which we did not discuss at all on the instant analysis. As a journalist and a podcaster, with us trying to do the instant analysis, I got to say, Chris, I hate the way that these are being done. It's 90 minutes. It's a lot of fluff. Sometimes it delays us knocking out the show because we don't want to miss anything. But looking at them entirely as a fan, and this one I watched well after we taped our podcast, I actually enjoy the new format. It's a mix of desk analysis. Joe Tessitore does a great job leading the charge with Big E. He's the main analyst. Interviews with talent at the desk. I like those. It's better than the media asking them nothing burger questions. And then the actual press conference stuff with the executives, in this case, Paul Levesque and Dwayne Johnson. It was annoying to watch while building the show Saturday night. While taking notes for this episode and not on a time crunch, I found it entertaining, even if we only learned so much from it.
I like the show because I think Tessitore does a really, really good job, and Big E and Peter Rosenberg did a good job with that. But the press conference itself, I hate now.
They're kind of getting worse and worse.
They're getting worse because they're all like nudged or planted questions, essentially.
Yep.
Not to say like I want to see Triple H get asked about the lawsuit up there. I don't. I just want to see better questions asked.
Just real questions about wrestling and the show.
Yeah,
that's all we're
not
looking
like
for.
Who's gonna fight who, or who do you like. We had a whole rant about this a couple weeks ago on the pod, but like there's an art to asking questions and getting good stuff. Instead, you got this dude doing the Waffle House thing because he's a YouTuber or something. Whatever, man. And I really hate The Rock going up there and talking about what just happened on TV out of kayfabe again.
Well, this time he did it a little bit better this time. I will give him credit. It was way better than the last two press conferences that he did. The Raw Netflix one and the one coming out of the WrestleMania announcement. This was by far the best Rock press conference, quote unquote.
Well, sort of, but I thought he was better last year.
Oh yeah, last year was way better. I meant this year.
Yeah. And like I asked him about Vince McMahon at WrestleMania and stuff, and it was fine. And like I really like, you don't need to say things like heel turn and yada yada when you're showing it on WWE television. It wasn't as bad as it was post New Orleans. But
you're right for respect, but the people that are still watching an hour and a half after the show has already ended,
I know
they're not the kids that you're ruining the kayfabe for them.
I know. I'm fine with it. I'm honestly fine with it from Triple H, because he's just there to talk about business.
Right.
But I don't want to hear The Rock talk about business. He's The Rock, man. I want to see him do cool and fun things, not be a businessman.
I'm with you on that. A couple notes from this. So Rock said a bunch of stuff in his presser. It was, like I said, far better than the ones he's done recently, but nothing's really stood out as worth discussing. Patty Vega at Vega Alliance, longtime listener. Can you please roast these questions in the presser? Dwayne knows they suck, so he keeps asking for more. There were some decent questions overall this time around, especially to Paul Levesque, but spending time in a presser, as you mentioned, Chris, asking the number one box office star in the world, a guy who was on the TKO board of directors, involved in one of the greatest heel turns in wrestling history, spending time asking that guy about his Waffle House order or whether John Cena is going to continue wearing jorts, it's just pathetic. Straight up, there's no other way to put it.
From WWE's perspective, I understand wanting to get involved with content creators and kind of like do these fun things, but to me, the press conference is the opportunity is like separate. And
those are questions you ask in a scrum. You know, you ask that at Super Bowl media night.
Bring your YouTubers in and have The Rock talk to them for 5 minutes.
Yeah, do it separate. Exactly.
Like pro sports teams are not bringing the YouTubers to the press conference.
Correct.
Like you can find some time for those people. You don't need to do it there.
That is 1,000% correct. A couple other notes. Bianca participated in a desk interview. She did a fantastic job getting emotional when she was asked about Naomi and Jade. Levesque sarcastically asked, does it feel like we're on the road to WrestleMania now? Which, you know what? Fair enough. We had that discussion on the show, how the extra weeks and the importance of Chamber changed the feeling on the road to WrestleMania. Yes, Paul, it does now feel like we're on the road to WrestleMania. Regarding the return of Jade, Triple H suggested they were waiting for clearance and kept kicking the can down the road, which is why at times it felt stretched out. And I really can't possibly imagine it being better executed than it was at Chamber. So it all worked out in the end. Triple H said Cena could have taken the easy way out. Instead, he wanted to be challenged and even a little scared to do something different, go out on a limb in his final year. Triple H also said he completely took over production in the final minutes of the show, basically insinuating he was responsible for not bleeping the F-bomb from Cody. He also put over WWE's ability to keep everything tight to a small group in an age where everyone tries to leak everything. That's completely fair. It's also what we pointed out on buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. And on the show, we said when it comes to stuff involving The Rock, it's an extremely limited group of people who are aware of exactly what's going to happen at any given time. Lastly, there was a good question asked about whether the women will main event night 1 of WrestleMania. Triple H's answer was that he wants the talent to fight it out, and ultimately whatever resonates the most with fans will get the main event spots. His contention is that he respects the women too much to treat them any differently than the men. And that would be a great and ideal answer if it was accurate. The problem is that talent does not always get equal time on screen. If you were to tell me that starting now, Gunther and Jey Uso are going to get the exact same amount of time as Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair and or Io Sky will get over the next 6 weeks, and one of them resonates more and gets the main event, I will buy that 100%. The problem with the booking of the women's division to this point is that their storylines generally do not get the depth and time necessary to generate the reactions that allow them to compete with the men for those premier spots. The booking is far less consistent, and it's generally not as long-term. Liv Morgan and Ripley was the exception to that rule, but that was riddled with injury issues, and it got wrapped up outside of WrestleMania for numerous different reasons. If they had timed that out better and given them an extended break from one another, which you and I asked them to do, give them 3 months apart and then rekindle the storyline. Had they done that, that absolutely would have been hot enough to main event night 1 of WrestleMania due to fan sentiment and the way the feud resonated. Fans love Liv Morgan and they love Rhea Ripley. It absolutely would have been strong enough. But the point is, they didn't do that correctly. It got bungled a couple times. Again, there were injury issues and other things. But if you want to say that everyone has an equal opportunity to main event WrestleMania, then you need to book the women with the same effort and time that you book the men. Otherwise, it's not equal.
Well, the other thing is you had the Bloodline story happen. I mean, that first year of two-night WrestleMania, yeah, you got a women's main event. But then by the next year, you had Stone Cold Steve Austin come back.
Yeah.
Then you had Bloodline stuff going on, so you have the tag team stuff. Then you have kind of 2 years in a row now, CM Punk main eventing WrestleMania is one of your stories. And so that it's a little bit of a...
Well, 1 year he got injured and couldn't do it. And then the other year, yeah, right.
It would have been last year. And now I'm presuming, we'll talk about what happened on Raw, but I'm presuming we get to a point here where CM Punk in the main event of WrestleMania is part of the storyline. In which case, if it is, then there's no way the women are...
But again, there was no way. They didn't make the wrong decision in the main events the last couple of years. The tag team match with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn against the Usos and the Rock and Roman Reigns teaming up against Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins, those both had to main event night 1. The women's storylines were not as strong, but they weren't booked as strong either. They weren't even given a chance to live up to a main event quality type of booking. So you can't say that it's all equal when it's not equal.
You also... The men have more potential main eventers.
They do. They have a greater
the women
chance.
Don't have that. I frankly don't think Liv Morgan is on that level. I think
he's not talking about the wrestler, though. He's talking about the story. And that's my contention.
He's saying the story, but it's also contingent on the wrestler. You know, like if Trish Stratus has an amazing story, it's not going to main event wrestler.
I hate to break it to you, man. Liv Morgan is one of the most over women's wrestlers in this entire company.
I know she is.
So I don't know what you're saying that she's...
WrestleMania main event is where she's at yet. Just like I don't think Jey Uso is there.
Okay, you may not feel that way, but again, if what I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt and saying if his contention is true, where they're going to go with the storyline that resonates the most, Liv and Rhea was a massive storyline for this company that, again, there were a lot of hiccups along the way and things that happened, but had that been built properly without injury issues or whatever the case, that easily could have main evented a show. It could have main evented one of 2 nights of a SummerSlam or one of 2 nights of a WrestleMania, potentially. My point is, that's the only women's storyline over the last few years that's actually been built up with enough depth and time to potentially main event. That's the point I was making.
Yeah.
No other women's match has been given that much time.
No, but I don't think any collection of women are on that level yet. And I think they do have more of those now than they did even a couple years ago.
There's definitely a greater chance now than before. But the booking has to be there and the time has to be there. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Yep.
All right. That takes us out of our second look at WWE Elimination Chamber. I know we are deep into this show. I told you we have a ton to talk about from Elimination Chamber. You guys sent in a shitload of questions and comments, but we still have a lot to talk about from SmackDown and Raw. We're not wasting any more time. We're getting to it right now. Let's slide into the main event.
This is the main event.
Two-part main event for you today and a ton left in the good, the bad, and the ugly still coming up. CM Punk pulled up and stormed out of an SUV 6 minutes after Raw started on a warpath through gorilla position to the announce table. He knocked over the Prime bottle, saying he was ready to get Raw canceled by Netflix by doing a State of the Union to address his enemies, whichever names fans screamed. Eddie Kingston must have been seething with Punk addressing his enemies. So Punk broke the fourth wall, calling Dwayne Johnson a bald fraud, having a midlife crisis. Then he mocked the Goosebumps, saying he pretends to care about the business and is so desperate for the people to like him, he created a fake People's Championship title. Punk called Cena desperate, selling his soul, saying we can all see him now, peddling bullshit for the last 20 years. Punk reminded he didn't submit, saying he'd get his hands on both bald frauds down the road, and he had a great line. When I do, you're going to make a wish I never did. Then he little brothered Rollins, saying Becky Lynch better come get her man. Rollins immediately interrupted, and Punk found him on stage for an extended brawl, back into the ring and over the announce table, legitimately requiring 24 men and Jessica Carr, which I absolutely loved, to literally drag them apart. McAfee dropped a holy shit. That was unbleeped. And coming out of this, I thought there is no one who makes wrestling feel more real than CM Punk. And it was followed by one of the best, most hate-filled brawls that I can remember. They totally flushed that idea that the Raw on Netflix debut match was a waste down the toilet. I've stated numerous times on this show that Punk has been on fire since the start of 2025. He's actually been nuclear, and on Monday night, his ass detonated. The lines were not his best ever. He's been more cutting and insulting in the past, but the fire has perhaps never burned as bright. It was an exceptional opening to Raw. It accomplished everything needed to build a WrestleMania feud. My only complaint was that the promo didn't last longer. I could have listened to him rant and rave for 30 minutes straight at the level he was operating.
One might say this fire burns. CM Punk's the original theme in WWE before he switched. This was everything we like about CM Punk. Mm-hmm. We're not getting Rock and John Cena on the show, but they trust CM Punk to go out there and call him out in a way, at least that it's acknowledged, and it's acknowledged at the top of the show. That's a whole other thing we don't need to say, but to not have Cena and Rock right away is frustrating.
I know.
We've criticized, I don't know what their schedules are, but again, WWE does not always immediately.
Cena immediately went back to film in Africa, I think. So he was not available.
I know. They don't.
What about a post-show moment between them that you could tape and then air on Raw? Something to show both of them.
What about John Cena via satellite?
Yeah,
do the whole maybe we'll get that SmackDown. I don't know, but everything about this was fantastic, except Punk saying he doesn't carry around a fake title to call himself the People's Champ. There was a pause before he said the People's Champ because a lot of us remembered he had a fake title in AEW. He called himself the Real World Champ. He's still the champion of that.
That was not a fake title.
What do you mean it wasn't a fake
title? That was a real championship that he never lost. That he was a fake champion. He purported himself to be the champion, but that was not a fake title. He used his words specifically here. The People's Championship is a literal fake championship.
He was stripped of the title. He's not the champion anymore.
He was not the champion, but it wasn't a fake title, though. That was a real championship. He used his words purposefully.
It doesn't mean anything. The title is not the championship.
It was the world title that he had. It was the actual it meant something.
But there was another world championship. It's the other thing.
Yes, of course, but he didn't invent a title. His point, come on, Chris. His point here is that The Rock, out of thin air, created the People's Championship so he could carry around a title.
I know. I'm just saying that specific line when his final gimmick in AEW was.
But that's why he was specific about it. That's why he used that terminology.
I think most listeners made the connection and thought that.
I don't think they did. I think you're wrong.
I saw a lot of people online saying this.
Of course, because you were looking online. Come on,
it's totally not out of line to giggle at that comment after his
totally different.
Anyway. It's not totally different.
It literally is completely different.
His gimmick was calling himself champion.
Chris, one was a real championship he had and never lost. The other is literally a fake title, the People's Championship that he had Muhammad Ali's widow give to him to make himself feel better. That's the point that Punk was making. Come on.
I know the point he was making. I'm saying it's not that dissimilar.
It's completely different. And the verbiage he used was for that reason. It's as simple as that. We'll agree to disagree. Let's just keep going. And by the way, I'll mention Becky after the match. She sent her first WWE on-screen related tweet, I believe, since her contract expired. It was a retort to Punk's comment, and it was a picture of Punk and Roxanne Perez wearing matching gear from Elimination Chamber. Basically, she was telling AJ Lee, come get your man. I'll tell you this, a mixed tag team match between the husbands and wives, one day, if they're able to pull that off, that would be absolutely immense. But continuing with this, Rollins was exiting the arena later when Punk ran up on him. Officials quickly separated them, and they didn't really come to blows again. Adam Pearce later told Rollins he was putting him in a bad position. Rollins said, dude, I'm making your life easy. He said, I promise I'm going to ensure Punk does not make WrestleMania just like Roman Reigns. So Pearce decided to book Rollins Punk inside a steel cage next week in Madison Square Garden, which Seth loved. Then Pearce put security directly outside of Rollins' tour bus to prevent any further chaos. And I figured Punk was going to attack him in the tour bus later in the show, but that just never happened. Now, this booking would appear to be less than ideal on the surface, already running their second one-on-one match with a stipulation, not on a premium live event. Best case scenario, Roman Reigns interrupts, presumably costs Rollins. Gotta believe this is when Reigns makes his return before the European tour. I would be shocked if they held him off coming back until they're overseas. Best case scenario, if it's a clean finish, would be Rollins winning to even the series 1-1, creating the need for a rubber match, whether at WrestleMania later this year or elsewhere if they wind up going triple threat in April. I was frustrated when Rollins Punk was booked for that Raw on Netflix debut, but I'm not going to huff and puff over this decision until I see how it plays out. The only scenario that should absolutely not happen is Punk beating Rollins clean, and I cannot imagine that will be the booking.
No. When Rollins was like, it's obvious, I'm like, oh, they're going to book Mania.
Right. That's what I thought.
Because that was the obvious thing. And then he has to throw in the line, I want him done before WrestleMania. Oh, okay. We're going to do Madison
I actually missed
Square
that line. I didn't even hear that, so I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, so I was like, oh, okay. And so that makes sense. My guess here is Rollins wins, Punk calls in the favor to Paul Heyman, gets in the match. And it's the main event of night one. That is my prediction.
Yeah, I just think Reigns shows up, interferes. Rollins winds up getting the win. That makes Punk even more angry at Reigns. And then you get to the triple threat that we've been expecting. What I still do not understand is people suggesting Roman, Seth, and Punk doesn't make sense as a triple threat. Now, you may not like it more than you would Reigns, Rollins, or Rollins, Punk. And that is completely fair if you feel that way. But saying the triple threat between them doesn't make sense is ridiculous. There is unbridled hatred between Reigns and Rollins. Same thing with Rollins and Punk. Reigns and Punk also hate each other. They were reluctant one-time partners because of Paul Heyman, and Punk had to get an IOU favor just to do it. Punk just eliminated Reigns from the Rumble. Don't forget. That was before Seth murked Roman with the double stomp. There's also history. Punk is the reason for the Shield existing, both in kayfabe and reality. As I've mentioned before, this also would allow, if they book the triple threat, Punk Rollins and Reigns Rollins to be held for future major events. I actually want the triple threat more than either of the singles matches, specifically for this year. Long term, I do want those singles matches, but they need long builds to be main events of major shows. If this is going to be a night one WrestleMania main event, I would go with the triple threat every single time, and there is more than enough story to get us there.
Yes, and we've done Roman Seth too. It's not something that hasn't happened. And plus, they probably won't get into it, but the whole history of Punk burying Roman Reigns in the Colt Cabana podcast.
Absolutely.
They got him sued by WWE and stunted Roman's career for many, many years.
Totally.
So it's kind of a flip of how I feel about the women, which we'll get to. But I think it makes sense. And the only other thing I could think of potentially is Punk loses Roman Seth, and then Punk gets the Logan Paul match, which has kind of been out there a little bit. If you wanted to do it, there is a little bit of a story there.
Man, that is so scary. It does seem like Logan Paul's moving on, though, which is a positive, but he could be wrestling someone else important, so we will find out. Now, that was the first half of the main event. Let's get to the second half that you just alluded to. Bianca Belair was interviewed backstage while Natalya spoke with Maxine Dupree in the background. I guess Maxine's getting ready to fight Gunther next week or something like that. Yeah. Belair chose not to address the Jade Cargill-Naomi situation. She said she has been unable to speak with both of them and doesn't want to talk about it until she does. She said she was sad about what happened with them, but she's proud of herself for winning Elimination Chamber. Then she put over both of the competitors on Monday night. That brought us to the Women's World Championship, Rhea Ripley defending against IYO SKY. This was appropriately the main event, with Belair ringside, a sight for my sore eyes. Evenly wrestled match, big moves both ways. IYO hit a cross-arm backstabber, a massive missile dropkick. Ripley sold frustration about being unable to put Sky away. IYO avoided Prism Trap and slammed the shoulder Rhea was selling into the ring apron. Ripley decleated Sky, running with a massive boot. IYO countered Riptide into a DDT, hit Dakota Kai's running boot, then delivered Kairi Sane's insane elbow for a false finish. Then she did the Asuka lock, but Ripley powered up. IYO hit Bullet Train. Ripley stopped over the moonsault, hitting an avalanche back suplex. Thanks to one dude yelling, "This is awesome," the crowd actually chanted, "This is awesome." It was audible the way that happened. It was awesome the way it actually transpired. Rhea put the Prism Trap back in. IYO escaped, flinging Rhea into the ring post. She blatantly threw herself into it. It was really the lone negative in the match. IYO then hit a Tope Suicida sunset flip powerbomb into the barricade and over the moonsault to Ripley's ass for a rope break with her toes. IYO then hit an insane Tope Suicida near the announce table, but Rhea did an electric chair style Alabama slam first into the ring apron and then into the announce table. IYO knocked out cold on the ground. Bianca's rooting for IYO to get up, and she actually broke the count. That pissed off Ripley, who confronted Belair, calling her scared, shoving her backwards into the chair. Bianca responded by shoving Rhea into the ring apron. But Jessica Carr did not call a DQ. She broke them up. Ripley dragged Sky's lifeless body to the top rope. She's ready to hit Riptide. She's staring at Belair as she delivered it, saying, "I'll see you at WrestleMania." But because she delayed, Sky countered into a Frankensteiner and hit over the moonsault to win the WWE Women's World Championship in an absolute shocker to end a 20-minute
Banger.
And my reaction on my couch might have been louder than the entirety of Buffalo, who were pretty much stunned in silence, and obviously they preferred Rhea to win the title or retain the title. For what was an extremely solid crowd most of the night, they did not live up to the moment in this match, both as it was being wrestled and then after the bell. They did pop for the title change, but it died down quickly. It was massively disappointing. Not disappointing was the match itself or the booking. 4 stars, A- for the match. It was a bit disjointed with the drawn-out finish. Took a lot of heat out of the end, but once again, they worked extremely well together. Ripley needs to wrestle a lot more because every time she gets in the ring, which basically happens after she's off for 2 months, she has ring rust. And it's ridiculous because she's a great wrestler who should look super fluid. The question now becomes what's going to happen next. But let's put a pin in that for a moment. I loved the way this finish played out. First, you had IYO using all of her friends' signatures and finishers. Awesome in its own right. Then you had Rhea not kicking out, keeping it strong, but getting a rope break on the first moonsault. She never hit Riptide because IYO showed her prowess countering every time she tried it. Ripley's ego, not her talent, cost her in the end, similar to what we've seen with Rollins and Drew McIntyre. And IYO got a squeaky clean win with the better, more focused woman taking the title. Perhaps best of all was the officiating, not calling a bullshit DQ and letting it all play out. I will remind all of you to a person listening to the show, Silver King never, ever flinched. Not once. IYO remains undefeated against Rhea one-on-one, and even if she drops the title at WrestleMania, she picked up a huge win here. This was an incredible swerve to expectation, and my New Year's resolution for WWE reminding everyone that IYO is the best women's wrestler in the entire world. That is full steam ahead. Let's effing go.
They did. I love the vignette for this leading in to tell us, for people who don't know, that IYO has beaten Rhea every time they fought each other. It was a very good way to build the match, build IYO up for it. When Bianca starts the match, not even on commentary, but pretty much just in the outside the ring part, you immediately know, all right, something's going to happen here. And part of you in your head is just like, whatever happens here doesn't matter until we get to the Bianca interference stuff, because that's just the nature of having watched wrestling. Match itself was great. I do agree. Rhea does periodically look rusty. I really think it's just because she's not wrestling a ton.
That's all it is.
From what we're seeing, because she's a really, really good wrestler. But I thought these two worked well together. Rhea, by the way, like every time we see her, she's wrestling in just skimpier and skimpier outfits.
I noticed. You mean with the shorts? I noticed that. Yeah.
It's pretty much a bikini at this point.
It was. Yeah. Yeah.
She looked great. Hey now.
Gonna look good, but she's got me saying, hey now!
And it would be even more noticeable if she wasn't covered in tattoos, which are like half working as pants, essentially, for her. So Io's great. We know that.
Do you know that? Because I got a tweet right after the show, okay?
Yeah.
From Eric Galvin at EG720. I don't get how Chris Vanini doesn't care about Io. She's so damn good. Do you want to address that?
She is really good. I just don't really care about her. Like, as a character.
Her person. Yeah, right. Her person.
Yeah. And she is a unbelievable women's wrestler. Probably the best. She's the best. But I just don't care about her much as a character because it's hard, because she doesn't have a ton of like deep stories, and the language barriers was part of that. That's why we kind of leaned on Bayley for the Bayley Io stuff going into last year.
They leaned way too much on Bayley. They didn't develop Io enough going into WrestleMania.
But probably. Yeah. And so this happened, and I'm shocked, but I'm also frustrated. And this part's not an anti-Io thing. It's simply, you teased us Rhea Bianca, and we're not doing Rhea Bianca. Now, we could triple thread it or whatever, but I think that's a lot of the shock factor. It was like, oh man, we're not gonna do that this year, I guess.
To be fair, though,
gave us a face-to-face.
They didn't really tease Rhea Bianca. They teased a triple threat, because after Bianca won her number one contendership, the shot that we got on the stage was all three of them. So at no point did they say it's just Ripley.
It was not at first. Not at first. It was just Rhea out there. We got the two of them, and then Io came up in between them. But they did lean heavily into Io. They told us before the winner faces Rhea or Io. Like we knew that going in.
They made it very clear.
But I'm still just, a part of me is just disappointed to not get the singles match, which again is kind of the opposite of the Roman Reigns Seth Rollins deal. I'm not saying it's consistent. It's probably not, but I was just like, I guess we're not doing that this year.
Well, let me try to make the case, and maybe I can change your mind, okay? Because if we're going to play this forward now to Mania, there's obviously two clear scenarios that are possible. The first is straight up Io Bianca. And you say that's how the cookie crumbles. Rhea finds someone else, something else to do. I cannot imagine that happens. Yeah. Here's my guess. With Jessica not calling the DQ, Rhea is surely going to want a rematch. Io's still a babyface. You'll remember Rhea cost Io the chamber spot, gave her a title match anyway. Ripley can just ask for reciprocation. And she can also complain to Pierce that, hey, I got screwed. I was thrown into the ring apron and the match wasn't called DQ. Like, Bianca got involved and distracted me. But between Pierce acquiescing and Io being a babyface, Sky giving in because she's not afraid of any challengers, that's always been her character, makes all the sense in the world. We might even get an epic crash out from Rhea next week trying to get herself in this match. So not only do we get the triple threat that I hoped we would get, we get it with Io as the surprise champion entering the show. And Monday night, Chris, because you want that Ripley-Belair match. We all do. But what did I talk about on all the shows leading up to Elimination Chamber? We had the conversation. You have to get it started at some point, right? And you said, hey, if we just do the first match at WrestleMania 41, that can just be the initial story beat. We can build it up then. And then by WrestleMania 42, maybe it'll be a rubber match between them. And that can actually main event one of the nights. Well, what Monday night did was it created the first story beat in the Ripley-Belair feud. And it can still play out to WrestleMania 42 in 2026. But what it simultaneously did was it kept Rhea's first win over Io as an achievement she has yet to grab. And that's exactly what I would have done if I had the pencil. I believe it's also what I said I wanted the last few weeks. I just never thought that Io would walk into the triple threat as champion. I thought she would be the one who gets shoehorned in. Instead, it's going to be Rhea getting shoehorned in. But now Rhea has a reason to dislike Bianca, which she would not have otherwise had if it was just Belair winning the number one contendership and them fighting at WrestleMania. So you go into the triple threat. Maybe IYO even retains at WrestleMania because Bianca costs Rhea the match. And now you have the genesis of a year-long feud that gets to them challenging one another for the title at WrestleMania 42. I think that's the direction they're going. And if so, it completely works.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I think is happening. You just laid it all out there. I do think it's possible IYO loses the title at Mania. In this way, Rhea or Bianca don't pin each other, and they don't say, I lost the title, but I didn't get pinned. Therefore, you eliminate that talking point. So no, I agree. I think that's probably what we're going to get, and they're probably penciled in Rhea Bianca, one of the main events for next year in New Orleans. I just in the moment was like, I'm not getting that right now, and I thought we were. So that's all.
By the way, with the win, IYO is the first woman to hold both the WWE Women's Championship and the new WWE World Women's Championship. And listener Chef Aaron at IT Guy 26, I got him to do some research for us as we were prepping the show. He said IYO will be the first woman in history to enter back-to-back WrestleManias holding different world titles. That is an incredible achievement for her. And with that, we move out of the main event, and we're talking about a ton else that happened across SmackDown and Raw. We're doing it in the good, the bad, and the ugly.
And I'm sorry, Miss Rosie Perez, I call a spade, it just is what it is. But you can't give credit to anything dude says. Same dude to give you ice and you own some sure it is. It's time to wake up the dead. You sound a little naive in them articles that I read.
All right. Now, Chris, this show is getting a little bit long in the tooth, so let's go as much of a lightning round as we possibly can with this good, bad, and ugly. Gunther fought Otis in a non-title match. Gunther ran down Otis mostly for his weight before the match. It actually hit kind of hard, given Gunther lost a ton of weight himself. I wish he kind of mentioned that when he talked about self-respect. Gunther fat shaming is just crazy. Gunther dominated early. He taunted him over the ropes. Otis grabbed him for a fall-away slam ringside. Back inside.
Oh, we got two big meaty men bumping me tonight.
Chops galore. Otis got a dominant stretch that sent the crowd into a frenzy. Gunther ultimately hit a lariat and got Otis up for a powerbomb to get the win. Gunther went after Otis. Akira Tozawa saved, but got powerbombed into his buddy. Jey Uso obviously saved. He actually hit one of his best spears and raised the title. As he celebrated on the ropes, a Town Down Under attacked him from behind. Jey easily got up on both of them, Cena style, then speared Grayson Waller. Gunther took advantage with the sleeper hold. That led to a total knockout of Jey. Jey later dapped up the Alpha Babes, that is their real name now, and cut a strong promo saying he feels the doubt inside of him growing, but he's not going to allow it to keep happening. He promised to walk through the valley of the shadow of death, past Gunther's 10 weeks of hell, because he woke up a beast. And then I think it was Jackie Redmond made a great point that Jey just walked out into Buffalo, like the outdoors, shirtless, which I think it was like 20 degrees out. So that was pretty funny. Not only was this not a squash match, it was immensely competitive. And it was a match that did way more for Otis than probably any bout that I can remember. The Jey save and 1-on-2 dominance of the heel team, that was paint by numbers. Gunther coming back, dominating him. It created a fantastic scene at the end of the segment. I was annoyed when Gunther did not deliver another week from hell as promised last Monday. And I thought that was going to happen again here, but coming back and forcing Jey to pass out, that definitely got the job done. And Jey's passionate promo, it was one of his best over the last few months. This was good.
Yeah, it was good. It was a reminder that people still really like Otis, and he plays the underdog role really well if you kind of get a good setup. And to that point, I think a big reason fans were into the match and behind Otis was because of what Gunther said right before the match.
Absolutely.
That's like old school wrestling 101.
90s heel heat.
Yeah, you come down, you run down the babyface, and then you fight him, and you've just instantly given your fans a reason to connect with the person the bad guy is fighting. This was basic stuff. It was really good.
And what's crazy is that they probably didn't even need to do that for Otis because he's so over, but it got him even more over.
Yeah, exactly. That's why you do that stuff. Waller Theory, did I miss something or was that totally random?
No, they had a confrontation with him last week and that led to this. Yeah.
I guess I just forgot about that. It felt unnecessary, but I imagine there'll be some matches between now and Mania.
I think the move is that Gunther had 2 matches. Jay's going to have 2 matches back-to-back weeks, and then they'll spend the final 5 weeks or whatever actually.
But yeah, it did feel a bit random because it didn't feel like, 10 weeks.
Yeah, no,
weeks of hell.
They shit talked him last week, and he super kicked Waller, so that's why.
That's right. That's right. But I was expecting kind of each week that Jay would kind of go through trials, and he's just kind of not really, which is fine. But it was a good promo and everything. It's just it was fine. It was good.
There's giving the weeks to hell. It's just not as hellacious as I think we thought it was going to.
Was that an official thing, or is that something like we just kind of?
No, Gunther said, "I'm going to put you through 10 weeks of hell," and he kind of did. I think he's done 2 out of 3. I would count as that.
Okay.
So far. Judgment Day commiserated in their clubhouse with Liv Morgan suggesting Raquel Rodriguez go after the Intercontinental Championship because she deserves more gold. Finn Balor was down in the dumps. He took a shot at Dominic Mysterio and Carlito for being embarrassed by Braun Breaker. They pointed out Balor had a chair and still backed down to Breaker, reiterating that he wants another member to the group. This is Dominic, of course. So Balor decided to deal with Breaker himself. He called out Braun later in the show, saying he's only champion because the faction has allowed it, and Finn can take the title whenever he wants. Breaker charged from the second deck. Dom and Carlito gave Finn an opening, and Braun just caught Balor for his press power slam, though he did avoid a spear. But Carlito ended up taking the spear to end the segment. So Judgment Day had a 3-on-1 advantage, and Balor was still made to look like a chump. Heaven forbid Breaker take a coup de grace before he ultimately beats Balor, or Finn gets an opportunity to look even the least bit competitive against a guy 16 years his junior. There was nothing wrong with this in a silo, but looking at it from the larger scale of Balor's booking, I have to slide it into bad territory.
Well, and also, it was a very weird, we come back from commercial, and Finn is just talking to Braun.
Because they do the shit for the international fans that we don't get to see, which is mind-numbing when the United States is your biggest audience.
Right. So if you don't know that, it was very jarring. He's just we're there and we're talking. Wait, what did we miss? Why did we go to commercial? What's going on? Why is Braun Breaker up there? Okay. It took a second. So that was weird. I'm ultimately going to give it a bad for the reason you said. Why does Braun need to come out on top? Let the guy face some adversity for once. Right. It'll help him.
But let Balor look like he's actually a contender. You're going to give him a title match. The guy hasn't won shit in years, and he loses the confrontation 3-on-1. What are you doing? That's just shit booking. I don't understand it. Let's move to the United States Championship, which all of a sudden had number 1 contendership qualifiers on Friday. So WWE significantly altered plans for SmackDown. It was originally Shinsuke Nakamura against LA Knight for the U.S. title. And the reason why plans changed was Nakamura became unavailable following the death of Osamu Nishimura, whom he considered an older brother. He died at age 53. The expectation is that Nakamura is going to be gone to Japan for at least a week, maybe 2, mourning his death. Nick Aldis announced on Twitter that there would be 3 qualifying matches into a triple threat that will determine a new number 1 contender. LA Knight, Santos Escobar, Carmelo Hayes, Braun Strowman, and Andrade against Solo Sikoa. All 4 matches were happening on 1 episode of SmackDown. And I'll just say this, my thought coming out of the announcement was, if Knight wins anyway, what an absolute waste of time. But let's talk about what actually happened on the show. In a reversal of last week, Jacob Fatu told Solo Sikoa the friendly fire was an accident. Sikoa paid it no mind. Then he told Fatu the family needs to make a statement, starting with taking the U.S. title. Solo was supposed to fight Andrade, but instead he gave up his spot to Jacob to show how much he loves him. Again, Fatu did not reciprocate the love. So we had Andrade against Fatu. Andrade hit a Hurricanrana by first jumping over the ropes outside, 6th spot. Then he hit ringside moonsault perfectly, but flung himself backward into the barricade. Andrade also avoided a pop-up Samoan drop, running it into a Poison Rana. Jacob countered Meteora with one of those running shoulder tackles. Then he ate a Meteora and a double jump moonsault. Jacob countered again, basically with a middle of the ring bonsai drop, adding 2 running hip attacks and the Impaler DDT, plus the jump up moonsault for the win. We all want to see Andrade win matches and get pushed. Well, most of us. Chris doesn't care.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I know you don't. But Jacob was the right winner here, and Andrade got 75% of the offense in this match. He got over across 7 minutes, and Fatu drew the big pops for the finish. It was perfectly booked from the standpoint that a lot was accomplished beyond Jacob advancing. Also, I enjoyed this continued direction of the bloodline kind of splitting, but not totally splitting in the earlier segment. This was good.
Yeah, it was good. Fresh matchup, like new stuff. It was interesting. Good match. Good stuff. Good.
I forgot to give it 3.75 stars and a B+ for the grade. Andrade is a character away from being completely over with the fans. They never care about him until he starts wrestling, Chris. But until he starts wrestling. And then they go nuts every single time because he's a great wrestler. Paul Levesque has got to figure out a way to give this guy time to develop his character. Even if you make him funny, you got to do something to make people care about Andrade because everything else is there. You just need the character.
I got an idea. What if we put Vicky Guerrero with him?
Oh, God. Please, no. How dare you even put that in the universe? We had Knight against Escobar in the second qualifier. Knight ate a super kick after Escobar avoided the jump-up elbow drop. Then he took a header into the steel steps. Knight dominated offensively, but Escobar hit an avalanche hurricanrana off the top rope in the spot of the match. Then he did the pendulum senton over the ropes. He even got fans to answer Escobar. C. But he went to the top rope for a high risk, and Knight caught him mid-air with a BFT for the win. Not quite an RKO, but nevertheless, a pretty damn strong finish to a good match, despite it having an immensely predictable winner because Knight always wins and Escobar always loses. This is the fourth time Knight has beaten Escobar in 7 months. They work well together. I never want to see this match again.
Big pop for LA Knight here. Was very over with the Toronto crowd when not many things were. BFT, as we've said many times, is just not a good finisher. I'm kind of surprised he still does it. It was fine. I enjoyed it. It was good.
But a midair BFT was cool.
Right. It was different.
Yeah.
It was different. It actually looked more impactful than all the normal ones.
It did. Definitely. Braun Strowman and Carmelo Hayes was the third qualifier. Mello Don't Miz had a meeting backstage where they actually got along and came up with "Oss him" as a catchphrase, but Hayes denied Miz's help in the match, said he wouldn't use any of his suggestions. I'll admit the interaction was better than I expected last week, even though I did say I was going to give it a chance. Braun murked Mello with the train tackle ringside. That brought out Solo and Tama Tonga trying to take Strowman out so Jacob would have an easier road. After Braun dispatched of them, Mello pulled an Eddie Guerrero, throwing a chair at Braun and taking a bump with the dumb referee calling a disqualification. Strowman then destroyed Tonga with a powerbomb. Was it smart booking to get the desired result and keep Strowman involved with the new bloodline? Yes. Was it overly repetitive and lacking originality? Also yes. I'm a sucker for the Guerrero finish, but sometimes it just doesn't work. I'm giving this one a bad, but a mini good to the Miz Mello backstage segment. I thought that was pretty funny.
Fun fact, we're currently babysitting a dog, a young baby pit bull. His name is Mello.
Love it.
I don't know if it's after Carmelo Hayes or what. This was weird. Kind of the whole thing, like Braun getting attacked by Tama and Solo, but the ref doesn't see that. When was the last time the Eddie Guerrero chair bit worked?
It happens semi-regularly.
I've never seen it actually work. I've seen the referees think about it, and it almost happened, but I can't remember the last time it actually convinced the referee to DQ match. So I was surprised. I was oh, it worked.
Mm-hmm.
This thing never usually works. So, but I am going to give it a bad because it's really messy.
Yeah.
I know Mello beating Braun, you kind of got to make it messy to explain it, I guess, but I give it a bad.
Nakamura got a stylized promo package laughing at everyone fighting only to be beaten by an honorable champion. He promised to make an example out of the winner, saying hell awaits the winner and those who lose should actually be happy. I thought it was awesome. These have been incredible for Nakamura, but it's what happens otherwise where he struggled. So this was good.
I don't care about these anymore. We've done these with Nakamura. They're fine. They're cool. And then the story is nothing and whatever. I didn't care. I give it a bad, I guess, if we're grading it.
So we had Fatu, Knight, and Hayes in the number one contendership match. Another incredibly passionate walk and talk promo from Jacob. This after Solo told him they cleared the deck by taking out Braun. Mello sold an injured left arm from his entrance onward. Both guys avoided Fatu, who threw himself into the timekeeper's area on a failed running crossbody. Mello caught Jacob with the inverted springboard DDT, only for Fatu to rise like a monster and hit a pop-up Samoan drop. Knight caught him from behind with a neck breaker. Knight hit BFT on Fatu as Hayes caught both with first 48 for a false finish. Knight pushed Hayes off the ropes into Fatu, who was supposed to catch him but actually fell. It was kind of unfortunate. Knight caught him with a springboard crossbody into the announce table. Hayes caught him with nothing but net, but Fatu broke the fall with a swanton bomb at really 3.1. Jacob hit Mello with Impaler DDT and a moonsault, but Knight broke the cover by pulling Fat 2 and running him out of the ring, getting the 1-2-3 himself. We started Friday with Knight as the number one contender, and we ended it with him as the number one contender. It was predictable, and as I said earlier, a waste of time from the standpoint that it didn't actually accomplish anything. However, this match was great. The Jacob Andrade match earlier was fantastic, and it made for a real exciting in-ring edition of SmackDown. So it was predictable. It was a nothing burger, but you know what? It was good.
It's very good. I mean, a big problem with WWE TV for the last handful of weeks was you don't have a story being told throughout the show. And this did that. Like, it all built and built and built to this match, and most of the wrestling was good. So I thought the whole execution of what they were doing was good, and it made SmackDown much more engaging than it has been since they moved to 3 hours.
Definitely. Charlotte Flair backstage told Tiffany Stratton through the camera to get focused because she was waiting on the other side of Elimination Chamber. No grade because it was absolutely nothing. She literally just shows up, doesn't accomplish anything week after week. Maybe it'll get better on Friday now that Chamber is over. Just wanted to mention that this happened on SmackDown. On Raw, Intercontinental title was on the line. Lyra Valkyria defending against Ivy Nile. Unfortunately, whoever did the makeup for Ronda Rousey got to Ivy before this match. Lyra hit a gut-wrench powerbomb late, but sold a knee that Ivy had worked on the landing. Nile prevented a tornado DDT mid-turn, countering it into a vertical suplex. Lyra caught her with a great running, swinging neck breaker, but her knee gave out on Nightwing. Ivy did a Liger bomb and a deep ankle lock for a rope break. Valkyria then ate a high-angle German suplex, but hit an awesome draping backstabber and Nightwing to retain the title. I wasn't overly fond of Ivy getting the title match because all she did was attack Dakota Kai last week, and she lost the number one contendership between them the week before that. But as we mentioned on that show, Dakota's concussion forced Creative to delay plans and then run these matches consecutively. This was extremely well wrestled. It was easily the best match of Ivy's career. Lyra looked great battling through injury. She did a great job with her in-ring storytelling. The Buffalo crowd was better than most when it came to the women's mid-card, but it still left a lot to be desired. Hopefully the fans will come around soon as these characters develop. That needs to be the goal for both Ivy and Lyra right now. But most important of all to me, you know what I'm going to say. They got time. Time to wrestle. Time for the match to ebb and flow. Fans bought into it more and more as it developed. It is so, so important. Definite good, but I'll repeat, Bayley needs to be going after this title soon because she got that singles win. I'm not going to let that go.
Yeah, this was a good match. I'm glad they got time. I was into this. I thought it was really good from both of them, and Lyra winning made sense. The crowd's into her entrance music. Like, it all worked here. Ivy, I'm a big fan of Ivy. I'm glad she got this opportunity because I feel like she's just kind of disappeared with the American Made. Whatever they're called.
American Made.
American Made now. However, this has happened like several times with Ivy over the last year now. She's not strong enough to do the big power spots. And
she's very strong for her size, but she's very small.
Yes, and
she's
she
very
looks
small.
Unbelievable, and she could kick my ass. But there's been several kind of moments where you expect someone who looks like that to kind of do some unbelievable power things, and she doesn't. And part of that was, I think, the Royal Rumble last year being right up there with Jordynne Grace, and Jordynne Grace, who's a power lifter, doing some unbelievable things. And I was like, oh. So I think Ivy's become a really good wrestler. I just don't think you need to do the power spots really as much.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, she's listed at 5'2". She's probably 5 foot. That would be my guess. So, you do what you can do. Interestingly, once this was over, WWE replayed the clip of Punk saying Becky's name. And I've long thought, I think I even mentioned it on the show, that Lynch could return to challenge Valkyria for the Intercontinental title at WrestleMania. They are not only country women, but Lyra beat Becky for the NXT title last year. So there's a ready-made story. The match would be an absolute banger. I got to imagine either Becky returns next week in Madison Square Garden or she sits out until the Raw after WrestleMania. That's my mindset when it comes to Becky Lynch right now.
Well, do you think she could return during the European tour because it's before WrestleMania?
I suppose she could, but then you're giving away the fact that she's returning because when talent travels overseas, especially internationally to Europe. You know, people see them in the airport. I mean, she could take a private jet, sure, but they'd see her getting to her hotel or around town. So I don't think they'd blow a return like that. I mean, they've certainly given them away in much worse scenarios previously. But I think Madison Square Garden is where you bring her back if you're going to do it.
Yeah.
AJ Styles backstage was speechless about Cena selling out. Karrion Kross came up behind him, suggesting that it's not surprising given how disrespectful people like Logan Paul have been to legends like them. Styles cut him off, saying he wanted to remind everyone who he is. So he told Kross he would call out Logan Paul next week in Madison Square Garden. He also addressed Kross being the devil on his shoulder, saying, "God knows my evil ways." Kross laughed how easy it was to get to him. Evil ways was a reference to his TNA wrestling theme, which 0 people in the arena got. No one made peep, but I bet you a lot of people online understood it. AJ Logan in Madison Square Garden is so ridiculously concerning. I don't even think they're having a match. I think he's calling him out. But I will admit, I'm at least somewhat curious to see how it's going to go. This was good enough with Styles and Kross. I like what Kross is doing, but he needs to get deeper into one of these feuds and actually get into the ring again, because it's pretty much the same thing every week.
He's growing the hair out too, which is good. Bringing the long hair back is good for Kross. Logan, AJ, I feel like it's going to be setting up a Mania match. Like it has to at this point. And you know what I wonder if they're going to do? I wonder if they're going to recreate the Logan Ricochet spot with AJ.
No, because he does the phenomenal forearm. Yeah.
Because Ricochet's not around anymore. He's off in AEW. So if that all happens, I hope it's not AJ's last WrestleMania match. We know he's going to retire soon. Don't let him go out like that with Logan Paul. Give him something bigger.
Fingers effing crossed. Ludwig Kaiser hit the ring, saying he attacked Penta last week to take back the attention Penta stole that Kaiser has long deserved. He declared himself a future world champion and told Penta that he would teach him what fear feels like. I like that line. Penta entered in street clothes, I think for the first time. He immediately got up on Kaiser. He escaped Penta driver, Kaiser did, but he still got taken down and squashed with a tope con hero outside. Kaiser getting mic time to build his character, and Penta being given the opportunity to appear out of his ring gear. Those were good. It was largely a kick the can down the road type of segment. It just continues their feud. It was a busy Monday night. I was fine with it.
Yeah, like normally, if it was the last couple of weeks, I would have been like, kind of, of these guys. But the general vibe of the show and everything, and this didn't take up too much time. I'm with you. I was fine with it.
There was a vignette showing Chad Gable, presumably in Mexico, searching for the luchador recommended to him by Dominic Mysterio for training. He encountered a man wearing a poncho in a dark alley who said that he must become lucha because he can't fight what he doesn't understand. The man forced Gable to pay him $300 or $500 for a box, saying he now wields power behind his understanding. Gable removed something from the box, but of course we did not get to see it. The presumption is it's a luchador mask, but this was definitely a twist on what I expected. I believed someone was actually going to train him in kayfabe. This could have been the original plan, or the original plans could have fallen through. I have no idea, but I got to tell you, so far so good.
It felt like he was going to Lucha Underground or something like that.
Kind of did.
He was going to end up on the El Rey Network or in the Temple or whatever it was called. This was interesting. There were quite a few vignettes on this show, like Jeremy Borash style type of things that I found really interesting and really well done. And this was good.
I think you may have something here.
World Tag Team Championship, War Raiders against the Creed brothers.
4 big men slapping meat equals excitement.
The Creeds dominated early. Brutus even hit an insane 450 on Eric, though he landed on his feet. Shockingly, did not get a pop at all. Julius later pounced to the top rope for a superplex on Eric, with Brutus missing a moonsault coming back. Ivar immediately tried to capitalize, but missed his moonsault, so Julius hit a shooting star press for a false finish. I cannot remember an all high-risk sequence, no breaks like that, especially from 4 meat men. Brutus ball was missed, which was great to see. Ivar eliminated Julius with the running crossbody into the ring apron, and the champions hit War Machine to retain the titles. 3.75 stars B+. For a match that failed to rouse the crowd more than midway through, they totally came alive for the finish, and they popped huge at the retention. It was the right finish given the Creeds are still young. They have a long career ahead of them. The Raiders are in the process of reestablishing the division and the titles. It really should be New Day taking the straps off them, perhaps even at WrestleMania. This was good all around.
This was fantastic. This was match of Raw or SmackDown, I think. I thought this was unbelievable. All the spots the guys were doing were fantastic. They got time. It was great to see the Creeds get time. Every time the Creeds wrestle, they put on an awesome match and people get really into it by the end. And then they go back to being like weird, nothing characters, and we all like forget about them. I don't know. They got to figure out something with these guys. Maybe this is the start of something. I don't know, but they're too talented to not figure it out. Cole called them the Viking Raiders
briefly
early in the show, and it had to be corrected by McAfee to call them the War Raiders. I keep making that mistake. They were the Viking Raiders for such a long time, and I know they've been called other things, but like I'm still used to them as the Viking Raiders. I kind of just default to saying the Raiders because if I don't remember which one they are.
The Raiders. All right, it's bad, Chris Berman. I apologize.
No, that was pretty good.
That was pretty good. Okay, I'll take it.
Big meaty man slapping meat. That's what I want.
That's what we wanted to see from this match. That's what we got.
No bread, no water, just me.
And it delivered. The Street Profits told Aldis straight up that they weren't letting up on their aggression until they get the tag team championship shot they were promised and deserve. Legado del Fantasma similarly demanded an apology for the Profits falsely accusing them. When they refused, Escobar got in their grill. Aldis reminded him that he had a match. He gave Los Garza a chance for revenge. So that match was scheduled, but DIY attacked the Profits during their entrance, even taking out Angelo Dawkins' knee. The Profits got up on them before getting taken down by Pretty Deadly. DIY then took out Deadly with Motor City Machine Guns running down to dominate DIY. That led to a 10-man brawl that ebbed and flowed with highs and lows, and then it just kind of petered out like an SNL sketch. I'm going to give this a good because the SmackDown tag team division is the best it's been in years, and there's a clear direction they're all headed with these teams. The continued problem is lack of character development. Okay, we care about the Profits because we always have. We love seeing Los Garza impress with their athleticism. Maybe we have a dislike for DIY, but we still don't have any real reason to care about MCMG or Deadly. And because of that, what should have been a red-hot brawl, it got regular cheers and 2 brief let them fight chants. So again, it was definitely good, and they are actively trying to repair this division, but it feels to me like they're only 2/3 of the way there.
Yeah, I thought this was good. I thought this was pretty electric and enjoyable, and a lot more from these guys than I had thought in a while. But we have seen WWE around Mania do the multiple tag teams thing. We did it last year when we had 2 sets of tag team belts up there. So I hope we don't just go, all right, we built up a couple of teams, let's all throw them in a big multi-tag match for me.
Oh, dude, it's gonna be a 5-team ladder match. I have zero doubt.
Right. So like, let's not. We still have more than a month until Mania. Let's not have every week as 2 pairs of these teams wrestle. They all wrestle each other until they all wrestle each other in WrestleMania.
That's what's gonna happen. I'm sorry. That's what's gonna happen.
And they've tried to do some stories here. Like that's what the Profit stuff was at Mania at the Royal Rumble.
Sorry to interrupt you. There is a full story here. The problem is the character development, not the story development.
Yeah.
The story makes total sense. It's a great story, actually.
Right. So like let's work on the character stuff with these guys for the next month. Let's not just throw them all in different, mix them up single tag matches.
Totally. LWO got a promo package where Joaquin Wilde, Cruz del Toro, and Dragon Lee all actually got to speak. They refused to allow New Day to take their spirit or fire. They said they're stronger than ever. Rey Mysterio then came in, saying they should have finished what they started, New Day, because when they come back from vacation, Rey and Dragon are going to end them in a tornado tag team match. Mysterio said he's proud of LWO, and he said Vale Madre, which I believe basically means I don't give an F in Spanish. I'm going to make this one quick. This was the single best LWO segment since Backlash 2023, and it was Rey's best promo at least since his return to the WWE. This is what we've been begging for LWO to get for 2 years now. Character development, gravitas. It's the first time ever Wilde and Del Toro have shown any personality. This was definitely good.
This thing started and I was like, wait, who are you again? And why are you talking to me? This is like, it was like, wait, are we really getting an LWO like nice vignette promo here? I was into it. Again, similar to the Gable thing, like high production quality.
It was cinematic.
Yeah, and it like made me more interested in it. And it was good. for the first time since I can remember, LWO, I was interested in them, and that was good.
Right. Like, I actually cared. We have been talking about how we just don't care about LWO. And they did one quality segment, and I actually care to see them now. It's going to be really interesting. I just wanted to point you all to social media. These are nothing we're grading, but hysterical segment with Chelsea Green, Piper Niven, Nick Aldis, Michin, and B-Fab from after SmackDown. It set up Chelsea and Michin in a title rematch street fight. We hate the rematch, but the street fight's pretty interesting. Michin hit Aldis with a kendo stick when Chelsea ducked. We posted it Monday on our social media if you want to watch it yourself. There was also a great Xavier Woods promo that we did not post, but you can find it on his personal account. It was basically him saying he's not surprised that John Cena turned heel, and he talked a bunch of shit about Cody Rhodes dating back to their amateur wrestling days. So just wanted to shout out both of those. You guys can check them out. On the way out of this show, Chris, I thought briefly, because we are way over time, quick look at where the WWE WrestleMania 41 card stands as of right now. We have the WWE Championship, Cody Rhodes defending against John Cena. I feel like The Rock's going to be a special guest referee or enforcer for that match, but that's not official. The Women's World Championship, not Rhea Ripley, but Io Sky against Bianca Belair. The potential for that to turn into a triple threat with Ripley as the third. World Heavyweight Championship, Gunther defending against Jey Uso. WWE Women's Championship, Tiffany Stratton against Charlotte Flair. Those are the 4 matches that are official for the card. Here's 4 more it seems like can be assumed. Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, and CM Punk in a triple threat. Randy Orton against Kevin Owens. WWE Tag Team Championship 5-way ladder match. And some type of women's tag team title match. That's 8 matches, about 50% of the card. I presume the men's mid-card titles will both make it. The women's mid-card titles, probably SmackDown and Raw, I feel like, just due to star power. War Raiders and New Day makes a ton of sense for the World Tag Team Championships, but that whole Raw division is a mess. And then you have whatever's going to happen with Jade Cargill and Naomi. It's going to be immensely interesting to see how this card gets built up over the next 6 weeks. But so far, this shit is strong.
Did you include Logan Paul, AJ on there?
I did not, because I'm not going to assume that. They're just starting to kind of get
right,
together.
but we assume Logan Paul's going to have a match.
There will be a Logan Paul match. The question is, who's it going to be with? Might they do a multi-man for the Intercontinental title? I could see him being involved in that. Like Penta, Braun Breaker, AJ Styles, Logan Paul. Like I could see that maybe.
Or Logan Paul versus IYO Speed. Could get that as well.
I think they're friends, aren't they?
I don't know. I don't follow
Yeah,
that
I don't
stuff.
know. Yeah.
They're all the same thing to me. It's a good card for sure.
It is.
You mentioned women's tag. Normally I would say women's tag on WrestleMania not happening, but Liv Morgan's a champ.
She is 100% getting on the WrestleMania card.
She's going to be on the card. Yep. So that
No
makes
question.
a lot of sense.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, look, that wraps up this extended edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. We have been burning the midnight oil for you over the last few days. Silver King has some work engagements, but we will be back on Thursday with a loaded show. Not only will it be an NXT Roadblock preview, it will also be your AEW Revolution Ultimate preview, and Silver King will be welcoming our first interview guest of 2025. So keep those ear holes open for that. Again, if for some reason you have not already listened to it, hit up the WWE Elimination Chamber Instant Analysis podcast, which is waiting for you in the feed. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube for full audio of our episodes, video clips, and that interview will be posted there as well. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter, at Getting Over on Blue Sky for episode drops, news analysis highlights, and all of that good stuff. It's also where you can send in questions and comments we will read on the show. Please remember,
It's all about the 5.
so head on over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify, leave a 5-star rating on Apple, take a little extra time, leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live on the show. And lastly,
I happen to love the number 5.
sure hope you do as well. $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. You can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, exclusive news analysis posts every week, and you financially support the continuation of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. That is buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Thank you all so much for listening to this edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. For Vintage Chris Vanini, this is the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, signing off and leaving you with just 3 final words. Bye for now.